It's been 2 years since GT competition on the iRacing service took a major step back. A new era emerges today as we kick off the 2021 VRS Sports Car Open Sprint Masters Series. It's not just a new era of competition, but a new era of GT3 cars on the iRacing service, and we are delighted over the next 6 weeks to crown a champion on the road to $25,000. Hello and welcome to RaceSpotTV and the Hockenheimring for the first round of this championship. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be alongside Lewis McLeod in the comms booth with former iRacing world champion Hugo Luis down in the production booth controlling all of the action. TV cameras designed and provided to us by Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22.com, with additional car cameras designed by RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxon. Lewis, we are about to kick off 6 race weekends, traveling across Europe to some of the finest tracks on the globe, and I am so excited to have a major GT Teen Championship back on the market.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got to look at the calendar ahead and think of some of the positive circuits we're visiting that are so open to racing. Of course, we end the season at the Nürburgring when we return to Germany, but our start of that heads us to the Hockenheimring, one that is open for racing itself. It's a little bit tricky around here, but you've got plenty of moves, and we were seeing it yesterday, mostly into the arena section. Really good stuff.
You and Sommel Aurora had some fun with the GT4 and the Sprint Challenge. Let's take a look at the 6th race schedule over the months of July and August. Hockenheim, Barcelona, Zolder, that will take us through the month of June with a trip to Monza. The brand new Red Bull Ring, the middle of August, before heading back to Germany and the Nürburgring circuit. What a wonderful schedule we have in front of us, and an interesting format to look at as well, Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I was talking about this yesterday. Love this format. We've got 2 races of 60 minutes. We've got 2 drivers in each team. They'll be switching out halfway through the race, but a reminder that it will be both of the drivers qualifying. One will qualify in qualifying 1 and the other will qualify in qualifying 2, and that driver cannot start that race. So we are constantly changing the drivers to spice it up.
And there is no sort of specialist in this series. You have to be good at qualifying. You have to be good at the race as well. Let's take a look at the point structure and the prizes on offer, because the road to $25,000, it is a major prize pool, just as big as the old VRS GT series back in 2019. Point structure, somewhat familiar to you. 25 points for a race victory, all the way down to just 1 point for 15th place with a bonus point to the fastest lap, just like we do in Formula 1. Take a look at those prizes, Lewis, though. It's great to have major money on the line for these drivers, of course shared between the 2 of them.
Yeah, $7,500. You were saying it earlier, a total prize pool of $25,000. It is huge stuff and a lot to play for, and that is why we see the very, very best. We see VRS SCO and SimSport out there. We see Kova. It's going to be a tough fight.
And talking about the very best, the defending, I guess, VRS GT champion, Joshua Rogers, did win that title in the GTE machines. He's got lots of GT3 experience. He took the time over the past week to give us a guide around the Hockenheimring. Let's jump around and learn more about this wonderful track with the man himself.
Welcome to the VRS Circuit Walk for round 1 of the VRS SCO Sprint Series at Hockenheim. I'm VRS coach Josh Rogers, driver of the number 91 VRS SCO and SimSport Porsche 911 GT3R. Hockenheim is quite a technical circuit with high-speed sections and hairpin passing opportunities that will make for great racing. Setup can be quite difficult though, balancing high speeds and car stability, but all in all, a fun and challenging track for the drivers. Join me while I take a closer look at what makes Hockenheim so special. Right at the start of the lap, we get to one of the most important corners, turn 1. Getting it right can really help build your confidence for the lap, as it's quite fast and the margin for error is very small with the anti-cut curb on the inside. Then, on exit, it's much tighter than it looks, and you can't push too wide before dealing with those track limits on exit. Overall, a lot of fun and very important to get right to carry that speed into turn 2. So coming off turn 1, it should be on the left-hand side of the track. The key here is that turn 2 leads straight into turn 3. So you want to come off turn 2 roughly in the middle of the track and take a line that smoothly apexes turn 3 and lets you stay flat out there to set up our run onto the straight. Like I said, the exit speed here is also very important, as it will give you any particular opportunity to passing or defending into turn 6. Now down at the hairpin though, easily the best passing area on the circuit. Going to be doing roughly 255 kilometers an hour after the parabolica, and the hairpin is roughly 60 kilometers an hour, so it's the longest braking zone on the circuit. It's important to get the car stopped at the apex and not push wide on the exit to prevent those undercut moves that I'm sure we'll see throughout the race. So here at turn 11, we enter the stadium section. It's really quite tricky here with the wall on your left, almost like a street circuit right up against the fence, scraping the paint off the mirrors. You also need to be careful of that exit curb too, as it's quite bumpy and can catch you out, especially if you've trimmed the aero out of the car for that top speed. Now coming to the final part of the track though, overall, the entire complex is quite narrow, so very difficult to make passes here, but it's very important to get right, as this can allow you to open or close the gap before those drafting opportunities later on throughout the lap. Turn 15 will also be very important to watch out for track limits, as well as cars sneaking into the pits for their driver swaps and compulsory pit stops. So now, since we've taken a closer look at some of the more important parts of the track, let's put it all together and have a look at an onboard of a lap. So here we are on board for a lap at the Hockenheimring, trying to get the best run as we can onto the straight here, using up all of that exit curb on the left, preparing ourselves for this tight turn 1, using this little bit of curb on the left on entry to get the car rotated, 4th gear here, missing that anti-cut on the inside and making sure to obviously push those track limits on the exit. As we come up towards turn 2 here, we're focusing primarily on our exit speed here, so we'll take a nice late turn in here, 1st gear for a second, before driving the car off nice and square, making sure we can run through turn 3 flat out as we set ourselves up for the run down the back straight. Here, we'll just be focusing on our gear shifts, shifting up at that last red light, plugging this left curve nice and tightly to try and travel that shorter distance, preparing ourselves for this huge braking zone here. Starting to brake just at the start of the curb on the left there, nice and straight, focusing primarily on the exit once again. Touch of the inside curb before straightening the car up nice and quickly for the exit. So you can see you're running our way towards the first stadium section here. Tricky left kink here, trying to keep it flat out, but still keeping the car close enough to the right for the braking zone here into this left. Down to 2nd gear, making sure to just touch this inside curb, but miss the anti-cut. That's going to be crucial. Short shift to 3rd here on the entry, just touching the inside curb. There's a big bump on the inside, something that we'll need to watch out for sure throughout the race. Running nice up and close against this wall on the left here, like I said earlier. Making sure to touch this inside curb, watching out for the bumpy curb on exit, managing the balance of the car. Looking for the camber here in this left as we enter the stadium section, really taking advantage of that camber just like we would in NASCAR. Jumping through these curbs in this last sector, down the gears. Using a touch of this inside curb in the second last corner, try and help rotate the car before focusing on these track limits and really setting up our run onto the front straight once again. As you can see though, that's a lap of the Hockenheimring. So that's that for the very first circuit walk of the 2021 VRS SCO Sprint Series. I wish all the drivers the best of luck for this weekend. Hope you're tuning in, and I'll see you out there.
And we'll hear from more of the drivers over the course of the season. Not just Joshua Rogers, your Porsche Esports World Champion, but so many more talented drivers in the field. One of the things we want to do in this pre-show is feature some of these drivers, so we caught up with some of them to get their expectations leading into the start of this season.
Here goes nothing, I guess.
In the past, I have raced in both the 2017 and 2018 VRS GT iRacing World Championship Series. So back when the cars were GT3.
Back in 2017, I was already driving the GT3 cars. I was in a peer racing team back then, and I was also driving in the World Championship from iRacing there at the age of 15.
GT3 cars are the cars we've probably driven the most over the last 1.5 years, or at least me.
We did Spa 24 last year in that Z4. So that's basically the only time.
I drove the GT3 World Championship from 2016 to 2018, and I had one victory with my then teammate Mitchell de Jong.
Let's be honest, it's not very it's not very much.
I think I would prefer to start.
I wouldn't really say that I have a preference there.
Normally I like to start races.
Personally, I like to do both.
Definitely I prefer I prefer finishing the race.
For me personally, I generally always tend to prefer to start the race.
Like normal, really.
I don't think there's a big difference in preparation. We practice together as much as we can, try to build the fastest setup, and try to become the best drivers we can be. Maybe we might do some more like defending and attacking practice, because over like a 1 hour race, you're probably gonna have to do a lot of fighting, and you gotta know how to defend or attack. And so that might be something we focus on a bit more than for a normal team race.
So preparing for this unique team race, I basically kind of just flew my teammate in from Norway to here to make everything a little bit easier. So yeah, that's kind of how I go about it.
Yeah, preparation for this is just it's a simple case of a lot of time, a lot of effort. You don't have many shortcuts here at all. If you don't put the effort, the results aren't going to come. So,
To be honest, our preparation probably won't be any different.
I think nothing really changes in this format, because everything is about practice and everything is going to be worth a lot, especially when you only race 30 minutes. And in this packed field, every 10th of a second, every 100th of a second is going to be worth a lot. So I think nothing will really change on the way we practice, but stuff like tactics and so on are going to be a big theme and a big topic in this series. So maybe there's going to be a bit more practice, but in general, the way we practice is probably not going to change.
My main teammate for the season is Ruben Bonga. He's a studied engineer for cybersecurity, I think. Just graduated. Congrats on that, buddy.
Yeah, so my teammate for this season is Mitchell de Jong, very accomplished sim racer and real racer in his own right, having raced in the Red Bull Global Rallycross Championship some years ago, and now being fully kind of integrated into sim racing. He's obviously competed in the VRS GT iRacing World Championship back in the day, as well as Porsche Esports Super Cup, the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, and also competing in the NASCAR World Championship Series at the moment. So yeah, a lot going on, a lot on his plate. Very talented, accomplished driver, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to being able to work with him like I always do. I feel like we work together quite well. We bounce ideas off each other well.
So Dylan Scrivens, aka Bobo, my teammate, is going to tell you a bit more about the upcoming SCO series and how it's going to be a lot of fun.
Niklas, yeah, I haven't known him for long, but from what I have seen in past years and within the time that I've been on this sim, he's always been extremely quick. And now, being on a team with him, you can see how quick he is, and he seems to be pretty good with setups as well.
My teammate is Antti Ahola. He's a very hard worker. He puts in a lot of hours, setup work and doing long stints and stuff. So that's definitely, I think, he's the thing he's bringing to the team the most.
All right, so yeah, my teammate is Tommy Østgaard from Norway. I must say I'm not really too big of a fan of his. We don't really get along too well. I don't really think he...
Hey guys.
Hey Tommy.
What's up?
Yeah.
And well, what better opportunity, Lewis, to mention that VRS and LEGO have teamed up to give away 6 of those LEGO Technic 911 RSRs, as well as a season-long giveaway of a VRS DFP wheelbase. It's going to be a lot of fun, and everyone can visit giveaway.sportscaropen to enter that.
Absolutely fantastic prize. I mean, don't get me wrong, I want one. I don't know if I'd be running around the house making car noises, although you did get someone to make those car noises, so at least that is covered off.
And I'm sure we'll get that in the future. Cargo's Burr, as some of those drivers said. We will be getting those, Lewis. I have been told by the wonderful team at VRS and LEGO, so maybe we'll have a bit of a competition to see who can build theirs faster and show it off on one of these broadcasts. We've got 2 months. You've got 2 months. Anyway, let's get to the qualifying coverage. Before we do that, let's take a look at our driver wall, see how many of these drivers are sending us their webcam, see different faces there. Someone like Quinton Violate in the middle, looking very relaxed. Zach Campbell just above him, a little bit more focused, a little bit more intent. But qualifying has already started. We're almost 5 minutes into the first 20-minute session. The times are coming in, and, well, would you guess what, Lewis? It's VRS Commander at the top.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily the VRS Commander. We were talking about this beforehand about the VRS Commander Sim Sport squad, and they had topped practice, but it's not necessarily the one that I would have expected to be up there. You know, we've obviously attention more drawn to the 91, being that the one with Mitchell de Jong and Josh Rogers. They're down in 11th spot. But the thing is, with these qualifying sessions, we were talking about this before with this kind of format, the fact that both drivers have to qualify. You asked the great question of what do you prefer to do, start the race or finish the race? Well, there's nowhere to hide on a format like this. You have to be good at both of them.
Some wonderful liveries you can see. We're talking just about Lego. The Lego Commander car that was featured in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup makes its way to the Porsche 911 GT3R. Looks splendid on the 92. Should note for qualifying, drivers cannot reset on track, so if you have any sort of incident, require a tow back to pit lane. That is you done in qualifying. You are perfectly allowed to come down in, get some fresh sets of boots on your car, and head back out. There is that 92 car. Some wonderful liveries that we'll see on display, but let's quickly talk about, Lewis, the pre-qualifying format that led to this 30-car grid. It wasn't just about being the fastest driver you could be. It was about having the fastest team that you could find, but also picking the right car so you're in the top 5 in the standings when it came to the end of the week-long qualifying process. It is wonderful that we have a truly diverse GT3 grid.
Yeah, exactly. It's the it's trying to make sure that, you know, oh, the Porsche's the best car, so we'll get 1,500 of those. It's like, no, we want to see all of the brands represented. There's 6 cars on the grid, so we want to see all of those attacking the racetrack, and it's where you really do see the best of the best, because you may think, oh, over a single lap, say for example if we were doing it as a one-lap thing, the BMW, for example, might be the best over a single lap, but that's not very good if everyone approaches in that and then 1 or 2 people that have managed to get through in an Audi or whatever, and then they're more comfortable in the race. It's no fun like that. I like seeing the brand variety, and of course with you know, some teams are locked into their brand in a sense. This would be one. BS Competition, obviously they've got to be in the BMW.
Obviously, and Felix Quirnbach sharing that car with Phil Denez, who pulls it down onto pit road, currently sitting 9th in qualifying. There's Urano Esports in their Lamborghini. One of the interesting things, Lewis, is that because of that qualifying format, you look at some of the teams that have multiple cars, the likes of Core Sim Racing and VRS Commander. Not all of their cars are representing the same manufacturer, so it means your preparation is going to be a little bit different because you're not all sharing secrets about car setup. Instead, we'll be talking a little bit more as a wider group about strategies and things like that, because despite the fact that this is just a 60-minute race, you better believe that strategy is the name of the game with a 10-minute pit stop window.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to bring this up, that in the middle 10 minutes of the race, so between what will be on the counter 35 and 25, they must come into the pit lane at that point and then switch drivers, which, you know, can work out for you depending on how you are. If you're out front, if you're leading and you're pulling away, there's almost no point in pitting. However, if you're stuck in the mid-pack, if you're fancying getting out of that danger zone, then making a slightly earlier pit stop, getting yourself into some clean air could be paramount to progress on a grid which, whilst Hockenheim you can pass at, it can be a bit tricky, especially with the strength of field we have on here. It is so intense.
Well, and you saw a wonderful 3-wide move coming through that turn 2, 3, and 4 complex yesterday in the GT4. I wonder who's going to be so bold today. Let's talk while we get into the meat and bones of this qualifying. Still 11 minutes on the clock, and I'm sure plenty of faster lap times to come in. Let's talk about some of the favorites heading into this season. It's not just the might of someone like VRS Commander that I think that we have to watch out for. There are a lot of teams, Lewis, that competed in the Sports Car Open in the GTC category, as it was known in the Endurance Series last year. That was a single-make Audi competition. Beniti Racing won that with Pure Sims in second. There'll be 2 teams that have a lot of experience with GT3 cars.
And how can we ignore one team that moves forward on a constant basis in sim racing, which is Kova. They're currently qualified in second spot. That is a team to definitely keep an eye on. Whilst maybe a little while ago they might have been somewhat classified as an underdog, and maybe you'd almost be like, oh, they'll get their one good round here or there. No. They are here, and they absolutely mean business. And this is the thing, is it's going to be all about the underdogs to take on the sheer might of VRS SCO and SimSport. But if there's any team that can, that would be one that I'd be putting my money on.
And less than half a tenth between Kova and the 93 of Dane Warren, who I saw some of his family members in chat. Hope they're enjoying watching on from the land down under. Here comes the Porsche down onto pit road. Fresh set of boots going on to him once more. 10 minutes left. We'll talk about some of the other favorites. Biela Racing Team, always a strong pick in the GT3 cars. Frank Biela, synonymous with the four rings of Audi. But with this new influx of GT3 machinery that we've seen to the iRacing service, the Lamborghini Huracan, the Porsche 911 GT3R, and the BMW M4 that debuted as a prototype before a recent update in conjunction with BMW Works driver and BS competition driver Bruno Spengler to bring it up to the racing spec that it's debuted in the NLS series in Germany just a week ago. Great to have such a wide range of GT3 cars, but Biela Racing Team, they're always one to watch for. I have a feeling those Lamborghinis will be charging like bulls.
Yeah, I did hear, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do love myself a good Lamborghini. Nice to see them out. And look at them also both out of pit lane together, which is a topic we could tackle. Did see that Sven Haase was getting a bit vocal about some things, of course. But, when it comes to the actual focus on the racing surface, pretty fast driver is Haase, and obviously with his teammates Cruz and Kita in the other car. He's teamed up with Patrick Heinrich. Interesting to see them working together and using Slipstream. I wasn't so sure it was actually that advantageous last night.
Well, we'll see in the GT3 cars. Of course, you're talking about BOP, which is always a interesting topic when it comes to a series like this. And in this series, we're going to have a per round balance of performance organized by the series organizers. So always nice when the level of detail and the attention to detail goes that much further. But it does mean, of course, that teams are always going to be a bit frustrated. That's just the nature of BOP. And I was talking to Zach Campbell, who is also driving a Lamborghini Huracan for the Apex Racing Team just last night, Lewis. And the thing that he said with the new BOP that was released just a couple of days ago is they're expecting straight and low-speed corners to be, well, their biggest weak point. And would you know, that's basically all you have here at the Hockenheimring.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. You brake, you turn, you punch it. You brake, you turn, you punch it. There's not much in the terms of medium speed flowing corners. Everything's kind of a little bit tricky and a little bit awkward. I'll bring back to the point on slipstream and stuff, because this is one thing that, yes, they obviously GT4, so it's less relevant to a GT3. They're a bit more aero dependent, these GT3 cars, so even still, whatever. They punch a bigger hole in the air, so they give a little bit more slipstream, so in a sense there might be more of an advantage to sit in the wake of a car. But we saw, particularly in the second qualifying session, in those GT4s, more so than in the first, was that people were so desperate to hunt for the slipstream, which may have been worth a couple of tenths max. They were so desperate to hunt for that they ended up messing up their own qualifying session, because that's all they were hunting for. They never just did laps by themselves. But if you can get your team to work together like we're seeing here, you don't need to hunt for it. It comes to you.
And it's something you see in real world as well, that coordination, and especially in F1, always a hot topic when it comes to who's going to go out first. Of course, you've had the Ferrari guys having a bit of a squabble about that in recent years. Talking about Ferrari drivers leads me very nicely into my next point. This is a very interesting racetrack, Lewis. It's undergone so many changes since its inception, when it was basically a triangle that led drivers all the way around the town. Now, though, we head into this arena section and in towards Zach's curve. Sebastian Vettel, just a couple of years ago, showed just how difficult this section can be.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, obviously, particularly in the wet weather, but for this, you carry so much speed into the Sachs curve that when you start braking, if you're ever so slightly too far over to the right-hand side, if you're carrying too much speed, yes, it's banked, but it's so easy to just overdo it. And it's kind of one of those corners that, there's no runoff, realistically. Once you've gone up, once you've just crested the top of the banking at the Sachs curve, there's only one thing to greet you. That is gravel, which will send you straight into the barrier. And it is a tragic way to end a race, because it's always just sat there thinking, oh, how did I mess it up like that?
And talking of BOP, as I see Core Sim Racing into 12th, let's just point out that Porsche 911 out front with Dane Warren, Kova in their BMW in second, R8GR in a Porsche, but then 4th and 5th, Inertia and VRS SCO. Those are Mercedes, and the Audi of R8G Junior in 7th. It's a nice mix of cars in this top 10. As Gianni Vecchio points out, it is great to see 4 different manufacturers in the top 10. The BOP does seem to be going well, but the Team Redline driver, who has shared cars with Max Verstappen in recent memory, saying that maybe the Ferrari lacking a little bit. All of these cars have such a unique driving characteristic as Thibaut Casabon goes for a trip through the gravel. You don't want to do that during the race, Lewis, because you really are going to just shuffle yourself down the pack. This next part of the track into the penultimate couple of corners, it really is single file.
It is single file, but trust me, we're going to see some side-by-side through here. Like you say, when you have that opportunity shown to you through someone else's mistake, you go for it, you pounce. But one thing that is going to be a bit of a talking point is particularly this run through turn 1, that you run it in a little bit too hot, you maybe take a little bit too much curb, you run wide. What do you get? A slow down penalty if you push it that little bit too far, and that will cost you so much. Because in a pack like this, I mean, look at how close the field is. 0.3 of a second is separating the top 16 drivers. That is intensely close. You can't afford to make a mistake.
I mean, 0.6 separating the top 28. Only Biela Racing Team and the 46 of Sven Haase yet to set a representative lap times. We are really coming in to the end of the session. Urano in the 90 up into 12th position. 4 minutes left on the clock. It is an open qualifying session, so drivers are able to complete their final flying lap after the checkered flag has come out. Currently, though, it is all about the cars on pit lane, and that is Dane Warren out front and seems to be feeling rather comfortable. We'll see if he rolls himself back out onto track to complete another run here. Of course, he will not start the race. He will complete race number 2 and will start race number 1 with his teammate having to do qualifying duties. It is such an interesting format, and with so much on the line, I do wonder how aggressive, how many of the elbows are we going to see out on the lap number 1 here, Lewis? Because there was a bit of chaos down into the hairpin with the GT4s yesterday. GT3s increased speed. Who knows how that will go?
Yeah, and an increased number of them. Like you say, we're up to 29 GT3 cars hitting the racetrack. It's going to be tough for them, seeing a little bit of gamesmanship playing out here between BS Competition and Kova, as trying to get into track position and also not giving off the slipstream. That run around the Parabolica, it really is quite a punch. A little bit wide there from Pekka Toivonen out of the final quarter. Currently qualified in second position, has a couple of laps to do in this session. But like you're absolutely right, when it comes to the race start, these drivers, they're going to be taking a break for 25 to 35 minutes as they allow the other driver to take over the reins of the car. And this is what we're saying. There is nowhere to hide. If you're not good at qualifying, if you're not good at race starts, if you're not good at dealing with pressure towards the end of a race, you need to, you're going to struggle. You need both drivers in the squad to deal with that to the highest level. Thankfully, most of the drivers on the grid do deal with that very well. We are talking about some of the best drivers in sim racing in its entirety, but still, any chink in the armour, and yeah, you're going to be struggling.
Look at that steering lock from Pekka Toivonen, who, by the way, is the team manager for Kova in this competition. Antti Ahola, the regular second driver, having to step away, so Toivonen slips into the team. He'll be sharing that car with Tuomas Tatalo. Watch out for them, second in qualifying. And you know what? For a team manager, he's a bit quicker than I am when it comes to bringing a GT3 car around in towards the final sector. That's now coming into this arena section. Josh Rogers mentions this is like a street circuit. Look how close to the wall Toivonen runs. In through the Mobile 1 curve, using all of the curb on the inside, trying to avoid the bumps on the outside. This is a cambered-in corner. How much speed can Toivonen carry through as the Williams Esports Razor car up to 11th? 90 seconds left. This is the business end of qualifying now, Lewis.
Yeah, speaking of Josh Rogers, and at least that car, the number 91 VRS Coanda SimSport car, as we see Pekka Toivonen coming out of the final corner. Is there going to be an improvement? Is it going to be pole position? Let's take a look across the line. The answer to that question is unfortunately no, not yet. Still have another lap to complete. Mitchell de Jong, though, in that number 91, they are qualified down in 17th spot, which I would not have called prior to turning some laps around here. This was one outfit that we were looking at thinking that surely this is going to be one of the drivers and teams up the upper echelons, but Mitchell de Jong struggling here on an outlap at the moment that I believe was started with not enough time to get around. It'll be close. There will be seconds in it. But I get the feeling that this session is complete for the number 91.
I think you might be right. There are ooh, no, actually, you know, it is going to be very, very close. Young coming off a victory from Road America in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series. He's had a wonderful season there, breaking the stranglehold that Bobby Zalenski has had on the road courses. What did we really expect from the inaugural iRacing Rallycross World Champion? Take a look, 10 seconds. You are right, it is not going to be enough. 5 on the board, checkered flag about to come out, and Mitchell de Jong is done in qualifying.
Yeah, by 2 seconds, realistically a couple of seconds, session done. Wow, so first qualifying session underway, first qualifying session coming to an end, and we already have some intense drama and things that we really weren't expecting. Can Pekka Toivonen add to that and remove VRS Commander SimSport from the pole? Let's take a look as he comes out of the final corner very, very wide. You can see he's not got BS competition behind. It's a good lap, but did you see what happened to the 93 VRS Commander SimSport? They have improved and have done a 36.971.
Oh, wow, the only car to break into 37, the 37 bracket, I should say. They really are on a mission. Dane Warren will not start that car, but watch out for the hard-charging Australian come the end of the race. Here comes the Mercedes of Pash Gerges, of course, the VRS team with a number of cars in today's action. Interesting to learn a little bit about the updates about this Mercedes. I used to drive it a long time ago. In fact, the last time, that's the R8G BMW off the track. The last time GT3s were in competition for Sports Car Open with the SCO GT series a couple of years ago. It's undergone a major overhaul. I talked to a driver with some real-world experience that said it's only gotten better and more realistic. Gerges across the line. Oh, he almost improves. Not close enough. He will line up in 4th. We are done in qualifying, Lewis. Race number 1 about to get started.
Yeah, to carry on that point for the Merc, by the way, it was a pretty garbo not too long ago. Realistically, was not a favoured vehicle for effectively anyone. However, like you say, the stuff that has gone under recently, it's become a much more enjoyable car to drive, and most importantly, a much more competitive car. And of course, who's going to be wringing the neck of that other than VRS Commander? A lot of questions to be answered, though. A lot of drama already in the opening qualifying session, but we've got a 60-minute race up ahead.
For a moment, I did wonder if de Jong had got across the line in time because they still completed the lap, but in towards pit lane they go. 20 seconds left in this qualifying session. Just a reminder, you can head to giveaway.sportscaropen.com to enter our season-long giveaway, not just of a VRS Direct Force Pro wheelbase, but of course, a Lego Technic 911 RSR for each of the race weekends. 6 total kits to hand out. And just a reminder how fun a Lego can be. Let's turn up, though, the most famous song in all of esports. Let's go trackside to take a look at our starting grid here from the Hockenheimring for race 1 in the 2021 VRS SCO Sprint Masters Series. It will be Dane Warren and VRS Commander SimSport taking us to the green flag with Pekka Toivonen in the BMW rounding out the front row. Thibaut Casabon inside of Pash Gerges, also for the VRS Commander team, with Inertia Sim Racing and Matti Kaidasoa with a wonderful qualifying performance. He'll round out the top 5. Arnage Competition debuting them for Sports Car Open competition. Wonderful to see them on the outside of row number 3. The juniors, Julian Sonnen will take that car to the green flag inside of Tommy Osgaard for the Lego Technic Esports team, with Urano Esports and Logitech Gioltis on the edge of the top 10. Williams and BS Competition 11th and 12th positions, with Urano and Apex Racing Team on row 7. Sindre Setzels, Jeremy Bouteloup, they're on row 8, with Mitchell de Jong, one of the championship favorites, back in the pack alongside Ross McFarlane. Watch out for Pure Sims Esports with so much experience in that Audi. Core Sim Racing, Beeler Racing Team, they're on the edge of the top 20 with Jack Cedric and Dylan Scrivens in 21st and 22nd. Corentin Gunes, newcomer to Core Sim Racing, he makes his debut here today from Germany alongside another debutant, Maxime Briand for the Apex Racing Team. Energy Sim Sport, great to have a Brazilian flair in the grid. Renan Azderdo will take us to the green flag with Nolan Lemray for Valkyrie Esports, Eduardo Borget, Dakota Fripp, and Sven Haase rounding out our field. Other than the Biela Racing team car of Sven Haase, which was slightly off the pace, 28 cars, Lewis, separated by just 7/10 of a second. You know what time it is. It's Mystic Lewis time. Let's get some predictions from you.
Okay, I can't remember exactly what it was from yesterday, but there was the little bit of a thing that it was starting in second place. Was not the best for when it came to the actual race start itself, but if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it was second place won both races by the end of the race. So you've got to back Kova for that one. But I can't look past VRS SCO and SimSport. I can't look past it. It's got to be all about the number 93. Surely this is the time to open the season for that brand.
The young Welshman Charlie Collins will take them to the green flag. Recently joined up with the team before this World Championship season. He's a very, very quick driver, as we saw in the qualifiers in December. Not just a prediction from you about the race winner, Lewis. Who is going to be our hard charger with Joshua Rogers starting in 17th position?
But again, that one, surely that's an easy call that it's got to be Josh Rogers. It's got to be this pace that's been missing from them in that qualifying session. That has to be a blip on the radar. They have to sort that out. Surely with a driver and a team of that potential, that is going to come to an end immediately. But we'll have to find out. 60 minutes ahead of us.
60 minutes, 12 races on the horizon. We have the pace car down. We enter in towards the starting zone. It is Charlie Collins in control of the field. BS Competition has gone for a bit of a ride. They will have some sort of penalty. It's a long hold from Collins. The field is stacked up. We are green here in the 2021 SCO Sprint Masters, 3 wide into turn number 1 with the Mercedes on the outside. Kover able to hold on to second, but Pash Gergis's teammate able to sweep around the outside. David Williams, what a jump there. Flying their way down into turn number 2. They are 2x2 back in the pack.
Oh.
It's Arnage Competition down the inside. Inertia Sim Racing swamped on the start, Lewis.
Yeah, that was a pretty big send from Arnage, but of course we've got to talk about that mistake from BS Competition. Surely Race Control will have that. Jumping the start, not understanding the procedure. It was about when the pole sitter went in our start zone, which is around about where the start-finish line is. Tough racing here as the Lego Technic cars trying to move up a position, and we've got R8G trying to get back down the inside of Arnage. There might be a little bit of contact between the two of them at the hairpin. Are we going to be clean through? There's a little bit of contact in the background with the BS Competition car. We're 3 wide off of it, but I think other than that, we're all good.
Oh, there's almost more contact between the Lego car and Inertia. Whoa. The Lego car gets all sorts of loose over the curb. I think Joshua Rogers has had a mighty start. He's already into 14th. More 2-wide action. It's a Williams car tucked up behind Altus Esports with the Urano cars in front of them. Phil Denez was the driver that jumped a little bit early. Race Control, I'm sure, will already be over that. It was mentioned in the driver's briefing, so no excuses there. Look at Josh Rogers forcing Jamie Fluke out wide. Does it open the door to the Core Sim Racing Mercedes behind? No, because he's defending from the other Coanda car. I believe that is Martin Kroenke.
Yeah, side-by-side. Said we were going to see some side-by-side through here. Definitely seeing that between those two Mercs. As you say, Jamie Fluke's not going to be particularly happy at the way that Josh Rogers got through, but that's how Mobile 1 goes. 1 lap completed already, and Rogers up to 13th. In that pre-race interview, those clips that we were getting from the driver, that bit of fun that we were having, he did say that he liked to start the race. I think we're seeing why.
I have to end race number 2, and I mean, if you have Joshua Rogers behind the wheel of your car, you'll be feeling pretty good. There's the look at the Coanda Team House and the Porsche Tagcore Esports World Champion. And now onto this back straightaway. This is where we expect most of the passes to happen. And out in front, it is single file. I'm watching the 2 R8G teammates, the Audis. Oh, they are, the Audi and the Porsche starting to look side by side, but I think having to defend from the Inertia Mercedes behind. Altus Esports up the inside as Rogers gains 1 more position. He's getting very feisty in the early stages here.
Yeah, a little bit of contact there with the Williams Esports Razor car just coming out. It was Kalpanen. A little bit of a dive from Caruso, who got by Pazda in that Urano Esports car. There comes the dive, but Jamie Fluke's a part of this, going around the outside of the arena section. He'll give him the inside on that run towards Mobile 1. I think Josh Rogers, he's gone plus a few positions, might have to back out of this one, although we have seen this run around the outside of Mobile 1 towards the Sachs curve work a few times. Is it worth the risk right now, though? Oh, that is an absolute send, completing the move and gaining it. BS Competition fancying it as well.
I think there's some damage to the front of the BS competition car from that start. As still side by side, Jamie Fluke, one of the nicest people in all of sim racing, but such a feisty competitor. He gets the position from now, but Josh Rogers with the over-under. Wonderful racing. We're only 5 minutes into the season, Lewis.
Absolutely fantastic, sensational stuff. I would suggest that Jamie Fluke's going to lift out of this one, and you can hear that indeed, backed out with the throttle to allow Josh Rogers to continue. Very wide at turn one. They've got to be careful of doing that because we know the track excursions is going to get on them. The more if they were to do that, if they're pushing it a little bit too far through the Nord Curva, then they're going to get a slow down penalty. And like I say, it's costly. Josh Rogers has done so well to work up these positions. He doesn't want to just instantly lose all of that progress and drop back into the pack.
Further up front, his teammate David Williams is defending from Ricardo Rico as they go side by side into the hairpin. There's a look at that Arnage competition debut for them in this series. They're on the podium positions, more side by side action just in front of Josh Rogers. That hairpin is really a problem spot in some ways. It's Jordan Caruso and Daniel Pastor side by side as the BMW gets on through. I'm looking to try and see if there's any damage to that Altus Esports machine from the start incidents. As look at Williams down the inside of the Urano Audi. Wonderful move there. This really is hectic, Lewis, but what did we expect when we queued up 60 of the best drivers here in GT3 racing?
This is exactly what we were expecting. Intense racing from the lot of them. This is perfect stuff. Josh Rogers, after getting by Jamie Fluke, once again, Fluke's attention returns to his rear view mirror as Phil Denez is right on his rear end, and obviously a part of that battle, Martin Kronker as well, so might actually end up assisting his teammate by just getting involved in the battle. The driver moving quite far forward though is that of Caruso. The slipstream and the power, that grunt of the M4 coming onto the Parabolica just seems to work in favour of them, and they're able to just drag by everyone and make the move down into the hairpin. Can Josh Rogers do the same thing and work his Porsche through? Has to get by. To be honest, pretty sharpish. And again, progress needs to be made quite quickly, and whilst it has gained a lot in the opening lap, whilst everyone was close, needs to continue that progress.
And you can kind of see from the shot we had out of turn one, the gap between Caruso and Backham in front now up to 1.6 seconds. Let's see if they're able to close on that gap. Here comes Rogers down the inside of Arturo Melgar. He's had a pretty good start in that Audi. He's already got the move done, but can he have a fight back? As who's that? Jamie Fluke's looking to the inside. I think more defending from Phil Denez, who of course has got some sort of penalty. We would assume Fluke gets a little bit sideways over the curb. Does it open the door for more side-by-side action?
Yes, it does. And yeah, that penalty we're expecting to head the way of Phil Denez, being for a jump start, a breach of start procedure. Does complete the move though, is obviously ignoring that that'll be a thing, and is just drive, just do what you can, just get on with it. If you get a drive-through, you get a drive-through. Thankfully, there's 2 races up for grabs this evening. If this one doesn't work out for you, then so be it. Got to give an enormous shout-out, by the way, as you've been talking about them. Arnage competition, they've taken a few drivers from various places. I know elsewhere in sim racing where they've been racing, they've taken a couple of drivers from the XAAA Esports drivers from that outfit just to grab them. Some very, very large talent. Really, really looking good right here. Like you say, up in 3rd spot, clearly showing that BMW's plenty pacey enough.
Ricardo Rico, of course, competed in the Porsche Tacor Esports World Championship this year under the Zenith Esports banner. Now, under the Arnage competition, pink. I must say, it's wonderful to have a pink car on the grid once more. Some wonderful liveries as well. Look at the gap out front, though. Collins is not being allowed to run away with this race. It is 8/10 between him and Tumis Tatala.
But, you know, that nervy moment, that early start where you've got to run through turn one, which is tricky in itself, especially, you know, more so towards the mid-pack. It's such a difficult turn one by yourself, let alone side by side and wrestling with a group of 28 other drivers. But Charlie Collins got that one done, I believe, by the way. Teammate making another move, Josh Rogers, plus another one. Gets that one down on the Williams Esports Razor car. So another position, but now a decent gap to try and close up to Daniel Pastor ahead.
Side by side, that's Nicholas Laubish with Core Sim Racing and Carl E. Janssen. Janssen has the inside in the Ferrari. Who's that lurking in the background? I believe that is Valkyrie Esports and Kenny Rusin in their BMW. Another team making a step up into the Sports Car Open Championship. Over the curve. That's a little bit loose. And Caruso's had an issue then, Lewis. 3 wide, they go.
Oh, that is not a good place to go 3 wide. That is absolutely not a good place to go 3 wide. Was not expecting that. It's going to be potential with even more drama, as Caruso, I think, might have had a slow down penalty. We'll need to double check that one, as they're going to continue side by side. It is the Valkyrie car going side by side with the cool Ferrari. Oh, that is dicey stuff. They're still going to be side by side through the penultimate corner. Thankfully for Core, it's his teammate in the Merc behind that's just going to allow them to return into line.
And Janssen got into the runoff area, the drag strip that a couple of drivers a couple of years ago found out just how slippery that can be. Fortunately, no major issues there, but 3 wide was scary. And I think for Caruso, the first time we've seen any sort of incident. Here comes Valkyrie down the inside of Laubish, though. Contact between the two of them. Laubish gets hip checked off the road. Core Sim Racing tries the over-under. I think there was more contact there. Scores the stack up. They're going to be 3 wide down into the hairpin.
Yeah, that was a little bit dicey. Oh, and there's going to be more as the Ferrari going through the middle. That is an absolute send, and there's huge drama as well. I think that might be one of the Apex cars as well that's wrestled in that. That is exactly what we didn't want to see.
I believe it was Kevin Ellis Jr., the Apex racing car that went off the road. Jarl Tien trying to just get clear, but in fact cleared himself and cleared a number of other cars off the track. Here we go, still 2 wide between Carl Janssen and the Valkyrie car as we head our way down in towards turn number 8. It's some really scrappy racing at this point in time. I was thinking just a few minutes ago, Lewis, that it's been awfully clean, and well, the elbows have come out and drivers know just what is on the line.
Absolutely. I mean, this is kind of this was more what we expected. That opening 10 minutes to the race was yeah, nice and clean. Was a bit being nice. You sir, after you. Look at that Beeler car as well, absolutely sending it into the sack curve on Harrison. That was a proper send. Didn't expect to see that one fly down the inside, but Luca Kita making any sort of advantage. We don't tend to see that many dive bombs into the hairpin. Let's take a look then. So through the middle with Jarl Tien. That's rough.
And I don't know who hits him and really finishes the job off for the 57. I think it might have been one of the Energy Sim Sport cars, because I'm seeing them down the timing screen and slightly slow. From the look that we got there, it was really difficult to tell, Lewis, but it does look as though just Tien thought he was clear, and unfortunately coming across Laubish caused that chain reaction down this back straightaway.
It happens so fast. It was indeed Azeredo in the Energy Sim Sport car, the one that flew in there at the final moment just to finish him off. Massive shame, but like you say, you're coming around the Parabolica at such a high speed as, that was a little bit of a dive, I think, from Kevin Ellis Jr. Nearly, I think might have actually just made contact with the rear end of the Merc, but courtesy of it being a big, hungry Mercedes from Core Sim Sport of Harrison, it's not going to budge. That's a pretty heavy car.
And well, Kevin Ellis Jr., who now runs a bit wide, I think, coming through the left-hand Mercedes corner. He's side by side with the Pure Sims Audi. Does he force them off the road onto that curbing? Yes, but they hold on to it. Kevin Ellis Jr., who is planning to make a run for the iRacing Rallycross World Championship qualifiers, which will kick off in just a couple of weeks' time. Got his first taste of off-track experience, this time in a Lamborghini. Pure Sims defends from Bourget, though, in the Energy Sim Sport #1 car. This is for 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, but you wouldn't know it based on just how hard these guys are fighting. Further up the order, though, Collins has broken out of draft range, and Tumas Tatsla is being reeled in by Ricardo Rico.
Yeah, Arnage making a play for something even better than just third, so potentially a runner-up position or maybe even more. Those battles for 20th position, by the way, it's insanity to me, because the points are only for the top 15. Fair enough, okay, and it's not as if there's like a reverse grid or anything like that. They've got to qualify again, so they're just out trying to make as much progress as they can, but they're costing themselves so much time by racing that hard. It's crazy to see them racing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say no to it. Love that kind of racing. It's fantastic to watch as Fluke and Melgar going side by side a bit further back. But yeah, Collins broken the slipstream and is now running away as we ride on board with Bourget in that Energy Sim Sport Ferrari. But Collins doing fantastic right now.
He is a young man, and sharing that car with Dane Warren, it might not just be Josh Rogers and Mitchell de Jong that we have to watch out for in this season. Instead, it might be the 93, 1.7 seconds clear, and Collins looking oh so comfortable with 15 minutes almost in the books. Pit window is only 10 minutes away from opening right now, and like you say, Lewis, with points only going to 15th position, I do wonder what sort of strategies we'll see here. Drivers and teams will obviously know which of their drivers is the faster one, but it really is difficult to find the right track position to take full advantage of this 10-minute pit stop window.
Yeah, you've got to hope that I'm going to play it lightly here and just say the second driver in this race. Not saying that there's the second driver slow or anything like that, but the expectation would be that if you put your second driver into the car, they need to be as fast as the first driver. They need to start gaining that progress. At the moment, if you're in this kind of pack, as soon as that window opens, surely for RHG, they're going to be calling them into the pit lane to try and gain some time and move their way up the order that way.
And now a move on the Mercedes, as Bino Van Rensburg calls it on the forums. It's Quintin Violate, one of the junior drivers for RHG, down the inside. And now, does that open the door for the Porsche behind? No, it doesn't, because he gets collected for a moment by Inertia Sim Racing. Bit of a checkup there as well. See further back, just as big of a checkup in the pack. All over the rear end is that Mercedes, though. I must say, it's great to see this Mercedes. Like you said, Lewis, was not the funnest car to drive a couple of years ago. It is now a lot more fun and clearly a lot more competitive. 5 representatives of each manufacturer in our field to complete the 30-car grid. Such a good strength of field, not just in terms of the drivers, but in terms of the cars itself. I must say, it was Phil Denez that I was talking to about this Mercedes before the race, and you might think, well, Phil Denez, what does he know about a Mercedes? He's a Road to Indy driver in the real world. Not true. He has had the pleasure of racing in this GT3, Mercedes GT3, a couple of years ago in the GT Open, and he said, Lewis, with this recent update, this car has gotten even closer to its real-world counterpart. The one thing that he said is that in real life, the Mercedes has a lot of bite in the front, but it still requires a lot of turn-in. It's not understeer, it's just wheel input. And he says when he drives this Mercedes now, he feels that in the sim as well.
Yeah, I've spoken about this before when it comes to real-world drivers coming into sim racing and then having opinions on such with the cars. And of course, like, you've got to listen to most of them. However, some of them aren't really from the best angle as to requirements and how it should feel, etc., etc. And there are some drivers which have been in sim racing and in motorsport for a long period of time. That understand both in their greatest ways possible, as we're seeing again some little dives. Oh, it's going to be a huge hit. That is going to be a hit, and there goes the spin. That was a touch from Inertia, just overdoing the braking zone. Seen that a few times yesterday, and that is not pretty.
It was, in fact, the Lego car that I thought was going to cause a bit of issues, but it was Joshua Rogers that got checked up for a moment. He throws it down the inside of the Urano 90 car into the top 10. Oh, I see an issue for Daniel Ferguson. That's the first car since we had that last little tangle down the back straight to have some sort of issue. There you see left side of the screen, the movers and shakers. It really has been the Josh Rogers charge. If we were giving away a hard charger award, very much be at the top of the rankings. He throws it down the inside of his teammate.
Oh, no.
You cannot do that. Mac Backham in that Coanda house is going to have a lot of words in the debrief come the end of this race.
You could maybe argue that Mac Backham was braking a little bit earlier, but either way, Josh Rogers, that was not on. And yeah, diving it to the inside and spinning out your teammate. Rule number 1 of sim racing and motorsport, don't hit your teammate. That is one that Josh Rogers is not following right now. I'm sure he'll be as devastated as anyone else with it, and will obviously, apologise after the race. He's fairly courteous of those kind of things, avoids that stuff like the plague. Normally quite a clean racer, someone who knows how to get elbows out, but does it in the right kind of way. But for that, just a little bit too much. You did say, by the way, that it was that Josh Rogers was the highest climber. Actually not. I believe it's the Valkyrie car that is currently running in 17th spot. They're up 9 as Rogers is going to put an end to that, gaining another spot.
Yeah, there's a lot of movers and shakers. They are 2 wide, 2 deep as Denez throws it down the inside of the Lamborghini, touches the RHG car, and that Porsche spins around and has to wait for the field to streak on by. I wonder what race control will think about that. They will obviously, Lewis, be taking a look at all of these incidents because there is some very close racing going on.
Yeah, when you've got prize money like what we have, again, a reminder that it's a $25,000 prize pool here. You've got to have race control getting involved with some of these things. You've got to make sure that they're keeping you on top of it. You can see they're just diving it in a little bit too deep with Phil Dinez, just unloading the rear of the car ever so slightly. There was going to be contact. That's what happens when you send it in that deep, and yeah, it just wasn't pretty.
Unfortunate then for BS Competition, the Zebras won't be charging. They'll be heading down pit lane very shortly, I think, for maybe some sort of penalty. It's getting a bit more scrappy. I've seen Corentin Gunez was off the track for Core Sim Racing. His teammate has just followed him. Here's a look at that contact between the teammates, and from that angle, it's hard to tell, but it does not look great for Josh Rogers. The best thing about this, though, Lewis, is that the drivers are in the Coanda house together. So at the end of the day, let's be real, they're probably going to kick back, throw some barbecue on come the night, and I'm sure no hard feelings by Sunday morning.
Well, thankfully, this is the thing. This is the beautiful thing of them being in this, and the lovely thing of a race like this. You know, the moment that they're out of the car, there will be a conversation between the two. There will be that chat. There will be a conversation. Just, you know, for however, you know, positive or negative or whatever it is, they're going to dish it out between now and the next time they're in the car, which will be for qualifying in the second session, and then back in for the second half of a race number 2. Either way, racing is going on, and we'll have to just brush it off and carry on with it. But I'm sure they won't be particularly impressed. Mac Backham being passed or trying to get back past the Williams Esports Razor car. No way through. I've spoken before about the Williams Esports car. I'm really not a fan of the bright green on the Razor livery. It is intense.
I guess we're going to just have to agree to disagree here, Lewis.
You like it?
Well, I'm only slightly biased as someone who grew up in Singapore. You know, Razor obviously being founded, I should say, by a Singaporean, and not necessarily based there. They are listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, but very much some national pride when it comes to the Williams Esports Razor car. They have, I must say, some of the most interesting liveries, because I love that when you have multiple Williams cars in an event, you'll have the Razor car, you'll have the Fanatic car. Well, we had the Fanatic car in the past, I should say. You'll have the BenQ, the Chill Blast cars. Left side of the screen, let's talk about manufacturers very quickly though, Lewis. Porsche, BMW, Audi, Mercedes, Porsche, Lamborghini, BMW, Porsche. It is great that our manufacturers are really being represented here. It's only the Ferraris that are struggling here, and well, I mean, a couple of them have had some sort of contact in the early stages.
Yeah, I mean, for all of the questions of BAP, there will always, no matter what, they could be separated by thousandths of a second. There will always be questions of BAP and my car's not the best and that car's overpowered and blah, 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 boring. Getting past that, it is just lovely to see a whole load of different brands. As here we go for a bit of a send. That's Jamie Fluke down the inside of Mac Backham, and might even open the door for Melgar to come through. Certainly doesn't, but another enormous send down into the hairpin. Seen quite a few of those today as we approach the pit stop window.
On board with the Urano car as we come in towards the Mercedes turn number 8. Don't want to clip that inside curb and single file. They'll run for now. The interesting thing to me is Collins only 1.5 seconds clear now of Ricardo Rico, who is really on a charge, and last time around was a couple of hundredths quicker than the 93. Tumas Tatula has fallen off the pace. He's now 2 seconds behind the Arnage car, with Quintin Violate looking very strong. The juniors in front of the seniors, as it were, and we must say Roman Grosjean in competition this weekend from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. He's had a roller coaster of a season so far. It's great to see Grosjean really adapting to life in the NTT IndyCar Series. Has a lot of work that he does with his esports team as well, and RHG really have become a very strong force, not just with their core group of guys, but this increasing group of a young contingent they are recruiting, not just on iRacing, but all of the different simulators. This again, though, is Backham on back. This is 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th. You can see Caruso has been bundled down out of the top 10 where he qualified. Kenny Rusin, though, like you said, Lewis, one of the hardest chargers of the race.
Yeah, and potentially even more so. Look at what is waiting in the wings. Up to 16th spot after starting this race from 26th. And there is potentially more on the horizon as once again ahead of this, you've got a bit of battling between the Williams Razor car and all that behind. Look at how much side-by-side Cronker and Caruso is wrestling it off of the hairpin directly in front of him. It's just insane how much we constantly go to racing, to side-by-side, and they are just about on the very limit as here we go. Kronka, Caruso. Caruso got a slowdown penalty around this point of the racetrack and is trying to work way back up the order. Did so really, really well in the early stages. There's a decent move around the outside of the arena section to get by Martin Kronka, and look who came through, Rusin as well.
Kronka, such a strong driver back in the Open Wheel World Championship days. He struggled a bit since the GT era here on the iRacing service, but always a strong competitor. And great to see Kronka in competition here today. We are just over 90 seconds away from the pit stop window opening. We were mentioning it just a couple of moments ago. We'll allow drivers to swap around. We are not expecting tires to be replaced, although given that it's about a 30-second swap for drivers, you never know if some teams might go for it, spend a couple extra seconds in the pit lane to get some fresh rubber underneath them. But I would be very shocked, to be honest, Lewis, if any team decided to do that.
I mean, look, they would have done the research, they would have found the gains, but these tyres, they should be able to do the 60 minutes absolutely fine. I mean, I'm sure someone will correct us if that is not the case, but I mean, 60 minutes, these tyres, like, I've raced in these GT3s quite a lot. It's never been a problem before, so I find it very unlikely that it would be. Either way, focusing on this, Jamie Fluke down the inside of Kauppinen to get himself inside the top 10. Caruso with another position gain, nearly collecting Backham as well. I'm sure he would have been very impressed. And there we go, off onto the left.
And for Caruso, heartbreaking that Urano car almost spins into the path of his teammate. Caruso, we just got the update, had a shifter glitch, not a slowdown earlier in the race. That is heartbreak then for the Australian outfit. Great to have the update from Simon Feigl, but he will not be too pleased at what has just happened there. You can see, I believe, it was Arturo Melgar getting together with Caruso, and you know that second Audi is very, very lucky. Nicholas Laubich just about squeaks on through.
Yeah, that's just a bit of a shame, trying to then use the small section of racetrack we can use before returning to the racing line just to make an 18-point turn that feels like it takes half my life to complete. It really is hard work. Got to focus on some of the positives, by the way, in this race. You were saying the gap was coming down for the race lead. It's coming down even further as Mac Backham and Kauppinen's dropping down the order of the Williams Esports Razor car because he is into the pit lane just within the sequence. The window opened at 35 minutes to go and was just within seconds was within that window sequence. So clearly getting out of the car ASAP.
Pit window is open, and you know what? It's not just Kauppinen coming down. I see Pure Sims, Walters in the RHG car, as well as both core sim racing cars. So cars that had issue taking advantage here is, look at this. This is for 5th position. The Mercedes and Porsche of Coanda trying to swarm the Inertia sim racing car, and I think Inertia will be bundled down to 7th spot here, Lewis.
Yeah, just you know, when you're going toe-to-toe with a team like this, it's just kind of how it goes. Now, how many more can Josh Rogers gain? He's going to hand the car back over to Mitchell de Jong, who hopefully, from a confidence perspective, won't be too hit by what was a qualifying session lacking in pace. After having to start from 17th spot, Josh Rogers has overcome quite a lot. He's running now in 6th, potential 5th on the horizon, as there might be a pass on the teammate. And we see a couple of the Ferraris battling it out now over 19th spot on the racetrack. Of course, it being Janssen in the core car and Bourgert in the Energy Sim Sport car. So tight stuff. It's a shame to see the Ferraris this far down, but I'm sure we'll see them rise up as the season goes on.
I think I saw Kova and Tuomas Tattila down onto pit road. Indeed, yes, here comes Tattila. He'll be handing over to Pekka Toivonen. And more importantly, as you see Coanda in the 18 and the Inertia Sim Racing Mercedes down onto lane as well. The gap for the race lead, Lewis, it is down to 1.1 seconds. And I tell you what, if Ricardo Rico can apply a little bit more pressure to Charlie Collins here, who knows what Dane Warren is going to have to deal with from that BMW behind.
Now, if you're in the team, what do you do? Do you bring the 93 in? Do you bring the 20? For me, if you're in the Arnage competition, you're not bringing that car in until the last moment, until the very last moment, because the pace they are setting right now is absolutely phenomenal. Ricardo Rico right in rhythm with the racetrack, with the car as well, closing down that gap bit by bit. I wouldn't want to bring that car out of its rhythm. I want them to go until the right end of the window. Whether it's the right call or not, I mean, I wouldn't trust anything that I say when it comes to calls of sim racing strategy. But alas, it's coming down, and it's still, even now, bit by bit, and now you're getting the whiffs of the slipstream as well.
I think more tantalizing, though, is just the ever-growing car in front of you through the windshield, almost halfway through the pit window. Who decides to blink first? Gap is underneath the second for the first time since the start of this race. I must say, by the way, some very great chat in our VRS Twitch channel right now about the state of GT3 cars on the iRacing service. It's been a real transformation over the last couple of months here, Lewis. The Lamborghini Huracan, the BMW M4, and this Porsche 911 GT3 are 3 new GT3 cars to add to our complement of Audi, Mercedes, and so many more.
Yeah, and also add to that the fact that, as I said so delightfully earlier, and you brought up about the overhaul to the Mercedes, which was it was, like I say, it was pretty garbo. It just didn't work. It just wasn't fast in comparison to the others. Whereas now that one comes to the fore, so you've got that one to re-add back into the mix of the battles at the front, and it is really fantastic. If you're a GT3 driver, if you like driving these near constantly, there has not been a better time to race these cars, because it is absolutely sensational right now.
Couple more cars down onto the pit road as I see Caruso, Bouteloup, and Vieira all making their way for their one and only swap around here. There is BS Competition in front of the Urano Esports car of Daniel Pastor. These cars currently sitting in 5th and 6th position. Left side you can see the last pit stop lap. The top 14 yet to come down pit road. We will wait and see where Kova feeds out in comparison with the Coanda and Arnage cars, because, well, Pekka Toivonen is getting himself up to speed right now, and that Kova BMW looks strong in the early stages. Let's see if they're able to mount some sort of fight back with the pace dropping off. Here we go, though, penultimate couple of corners. Do these cars come down, Lewis?
I'm thinking no. I'm thinking they're going to stay out and stay with the rhythm, but obviously being proven wrong on that. But Arnage Competition, I think they are going to see this window out. Seeing Charlie Collins going to hand the car back over to Dane Warren, who qualified that one on pole position, was feeling the pressure from behind and maybe not fancying being a part of that. So potentially, a smart bit of strategy. No one else seeming to bite right now, seeing the Valkyrie come round in that 8th spot as well. So it's going to be a nice empty pit lane for Charlie Collins and Dane Warren.
So, Collins out, Warren in. Do they go up on the jacks? Philip Stam has obviously called Collins in to the pit road. I do not see that car going up on the jacks. Therefore, Lewis, no tires coming to that car.
Yeah, like we said, it's even if it adds an extra 10 seconds, an extra 15, whatever it is, and more so towards like the 30-second point, if I remember correctly, whatever time it adds, you don't want to add it, because if you're trying to overcome an extra 10 seconds, an extra this, an extra that, it's in this kind of series, you're just not going to see the gains from that, certainly not over a 60-minute race. So it makes more sense to stay on it.
That car went up on the jacks. It spent 4 seconds longer in pit road than Kova did. The gap between Kova and Dane Warren is now just 1.1 seconds, and I wonder if Arnage Competition can have a pit stop more similar to the rest of the field. Oh, they will cycle to the front of this field.
But then they're going to have a very hungry Dane Warren. I don't see those tyres going much faster, but it's something that we'll see pay more into it right at the end of the stint, more so than straight out of the pit stop. So necessarily, I don't know. That is an interesting call. Clearly, seeing, obviously they've done a lot more practice than me, they're clearly going to see that the pace drop off of these tyres when it comes towards the latter point of the stint is more so and more prevalent.
I just wonder if maybe it was a one-tire change or some bizarre strategy like that.
Right.
I'm on the phone right now to the Philip Stam in the VRS control room to see what we can figure out. On board with Dane Warren from the land down under as he gets himself set. As more cars down onto pit road, Joshua Rogers out, Mitchell de Jong in.
Yeah, gotta say, Josh Rogers done a fantastic job. Mitchell de Jong, who's going to take over that car, hopefully no confidence hit to the driver of large experience. Saying before that taking part in the 3 World Championships on iRacing this year, and like take for example what he's been doing in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series recently. 2 wins this season, most notably the one very recently at Road America, so that's a bit of a confidence booster. The qualifying session for this is not the end of the day. You've got the entire race ahead of you, and now with 27 minutes behind the wheel, got to put an end to that, coming out in a decent spot.
Well, I don't think confidence will be too far down as he cycles right behind his teammate in the 18, and it's Pash Gerges who is already up to racing speed. Almost to the conclusion of the pit window. Still 8 cars yet to come down on pit road. We are waiting for the race leader, Ricardo Rico, to bring in that pink BMW. He does so this time around. Let's watch and see where the rest of the field will cycle out. For now, though, you can see, I'll jump onto the onboard here, late onto the brakes from Rico. It's going to be an interesting pit stop here. Just how long does he spend in pit lane?
Could have stayed out for an extra lap, would have just had the time to do so, not by much. But from this point on back, basically everyone's going to come into the pit lane. You're going to hear that really annoying alarm just going off and off and off, but all those little bits that make you feel like you're really racing around an actual racetrack. See where they're going to come out as well. Of course, Kova quite close in comparison as riding on board in this pit lane. So it was not busy the previous lap. It's going to be quite busy this time by.
So here we go. I can see on my own feed Warren and Toivonen are coming through the penultimate couple of corners as the Arnage competition car is still stationary on pit road, waiting to see the car reappear. It has been an awfully long time as we wait for the cars to come out. There they go. There goes Jimmy Antunes, already off of the pit limiter. A 30-second stop. He is going to be several seconds clear. New race leader here from Hockenheim.
Yeah, like I said, the Dane Warren in the background is going to be charging, and he's going to be trying to drag Kova with him as well, because I would not be surprised if in 25 minutes that either Dane Warren's going to be knocking at the door, or we're going to have a 3-horse race for this win. What a way to open the season. And you know that when he catches that Arnage car, it's made up a couple of positions. It's put in a solid effort. It is not going to hand over the lead easily at all.
To left side, let's cycle through the order. Everyone has come down onto pit road. The pit window would have closed in 30 seconds. No such concern there. It is Arnage competition and Jimmy Antunes in first, with Dane Warren chasing them down. Pekka Toivonen for Kova right behind, just 4/10 separating second and third. Julian Sonnen has a bit of clean air, not just in front, but behind in his Audi. With Pash Gerges in 5th in the Mercedes. Mitchell de Jong in 6th. It's been a great charge from Joshua Rogers. Can de Jong carry that forward? Felix Kornbach for the BS competition team there in 7th, but of course, potentially several penalties come down on the 89 car with inertia in 8th. Urano in 9th, and Valkyrie Esports, what a day it's been for them so far, Lewis.
Yeah, was about to say, Lemeray behind the wheel. Now they've come out of the pit stop sequence, maybe trying something different to everyone else. I say not taking tyres or whatever, and some maybe have done, and they've gained a couple through that. But regardless, the amount of moves they've put on, the challenges they've been put onto the field, fantastic effort. Now inside the top 10, but let's be honest, they are going to have quite a long day of defending now. Their eyes might be glued to their mirrors, because there's a fair amount of pressure brewing behind, as you've got the Lego car that's going to be trying to find a move at the moment. Not sure who's behind the wheel. That was Tommy Oscar behind the wheel. You've got Zach Campbell as well closing in, so could be a pretty difficult end to the race, but hey, they've been through hardship, so you never know.
I was just about to say as well, Tommy Osgard, we saw in the interview clip slightly earlier, Lewis, that he's actually racing from the Commander House as well. So Backham and Osgard, they'll have that ability. What they haven't been able to do in the past, you can see there is the team room. Joshua Rogers, I do think he's probably going back and rewinding the tape and taking a look at the incident between him and Backham. Those guys so focused.
What's happened? Lemeray.
He's gone deep in the hairpin. Don't know if there was contact. He's dropped out of the top 10. We rejoin this battle, and we'll have to queue up the RaceSpotTV replay and see if we can take a look at this. But the Valkyrie and their BMW, some more work to do.
Yeah, I was more focused on what you were looking at with Josh Rogers, checking out his replay. Obviously, they're going to have a conversation, himself and Mac Backham, after this stint anyway. But I get the vibe from what we saw. It might have just been missing a braking point from there. Yeah, certainly. As you can see there, if you just caught that, it's when the nose of the Lego Technic Porsche drops down. and the fact that Lemeray hadn't got onto the brakes at that point, his nose hadn't dipped down, that you knew there was an enormous mistake. Like, that's missing the braking point by a solid 25-50 meters.
Just a reminder as well, since I have to get this out as much as possible. Remember that VRS and LEGO are giving away a LEGO Technic Porsche 911 RSR for every race weekend, as well as a VRS Direct Force Pro wheelbase at the end of the season. Visit giveaway.sportscaropen.com to enter yourself into this week's entries. Entering yourself for this week automatically puts you towards the season-long prize. Great to have sponsors like VRS and LEGO, not just giving the prize money to the drivers, but to you watching on the stream as well. Here we go, inertia versus BS competition. This is 7th and 8th position. Look out for the Foxes behind.
Yeah, they are charging, have put on a decent couple of moves, have got involved with a little bit of carnage down here earlier in the race, but alas, they're trying to make something stick in this mighty Mercedes. Maybe just going to play it out a bit more calm as Zach Campbell does get by Tommy Osgaard behind this. That'll be a dive down into the hairpin for the Lamborghini Apex Racing team, and the Porsche just dropping back a position potentially into the clutches of the Valkyrie car that's sat waiting in the wings. At the moment, though, look how almost neutral this Mercedes has been from on board. It just kind of looks comfortable. It looks, I'm not going to say easy, because it's not, but it's the predictability of this. You compare this to something like the Porsche and stuff, which may be a little bit more wild, a little bit more all over the place, a little bit faster, potentially, you could argue in that sense, but it's the predictability of cars like the Mercedes, like the BMW, that make these ones, sometimes more enjoyable to drive.
A 6.2 litre V8, well and truly a dinosaur in terms of engine technology when you think about some of the other engines that are going into the cars. The Ferrari with a twin turbo 3.9 litre V8, of course the BMW, a brand new car for 2021, a 3 litres turbocharged straight 6 engine. So interesting to see the differences that we'll get here on the track, and of course when we visit some of the other tracks, potential elevation differences will come into play. iRacing has such a detailed model on the engine. I'm sure we'll see the balance of power, not just the balance of performance, switching around from race to race. It is a back-to-back race schedule to kick off the season before, of course, the recently announced VRS 24 Hours of Spa will take place July 31st and August the 1st before we head into the month of August and the final 3 races of the 6-round championship. 20 minutes left on the clock. You can see Oscar Rene has gotten up into 16th position, bundling down Dylan Shrivens to 20th. There's been some sort of issue at the hairpin, and I have a feeling there's more contact into that trouble spot.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what happened. I found it quite funny that Bobo in his interview was saying that how much experience do you have in the GT3? None, really. I think that's assistance, and it certainly is being sent around, just unloaded on the rear end. That's a shame for Scrivens, but you kind of, I'm not going to say you've got to expect it, because you don't. It's one of those things that just happens every now and then. It was Van der Waal that got into the rear end of them, but it's a shame. But at least in this, you get to dust it off, you get to focus on race 2, which is coming up, and you get to have another go at it.
Let's take a look at the gaps once more, and what I was just about to ask our director Hugo Luis to go and take a look at. The gap out front, it is 1.5 seconds. Jimmy Antunes is rocking and rolling right now. He is holding off Dane Warren, who was so fast in qualifying, and look at Pekka Toivonen lurking in the rearview mirrors. Here he comes to the inside, side by side into the hairpin. Warren a little bit deeper under the brakes. All this is doing is costing these guys time.
That was an absolutely beautiful look, but covered off to perfection by Dane Warren. Just sent it in a little bit harder than maybe you'd have wanted, did Warren, but managed to cover off the Kova car. That I was going to say I was almost tempted to rule that Kova car out after the pace seemed to drop off quite a lot throughout the first stint of the race, but it seems to be back regardless, and they are hunting for a win. Said this might be a 3-horse race for the win. I'd still get that vibe. 18 minutes to go. Our nice competition, it is coming down slightly, bit by bit. Half a tenth here, a tenth there, half a tenth, a tenth. It's nothing major, but you get the vibe that going up against the might of those two behind, we are looking at a right underdog story here.
no emotion on his face right now, I must say. Super focused and super calm, and that is so important at the top levels, not just of sim racing, but any sort of esports sport that you can find. Jimmy Antunes looking in his rearview mirror, very, very comfortable. 1.2 seconds clear. The gap is coming down. Those cars are well and truly in draft range. Question I just saw in our VRS chat, by the way, Lewis, we're not going to have a reverse grid race for round number 2. That would be interesting, but I really do like what we have instead. The driver that started this race and therefore didn't qualify for race number 1 has to qualify for race number 2. Let's get back to that. As Toivonen, can he get around the outside into the hairpin? It is Warren who still defends over-under from that BMW. Can he get the power down?
Yeah, just absolutely slamming it into the braking zone of the hairpin to cover off the BMW behind. Kova looks really, really fast in a straight line, but even whilst they're battling like this, they're still closing in on an large competition by around about 2 or 3 tenths a lap. So that gap is going to disappear bit by bit, but you kind of think once they're there, if you can... I've always said this before, if they're charging towards you and they reach you, if you can keep them behind, not even for a lap, for a few corners, that almost dissipates the advantage that they have. It just calms things down. It brings them down onto your level if you could just hold them at bay for a little while. And then it's about just defending as if it was a standard car behind you. Although, how can you ignore the famous purple, orange and white colours and think, no, that's a standard car? Or even the black of the Kova. It's going to be a tough race for them. But yeah, speaking of the format, I absolutely love the fact that we don't do a reverse grid, that it's all about qualifying again, but it's not qualifying with the same driver. You've got to get the driver that started race 1 will be qualifying for race 2. They didn't qualify for race 1, so it's seeing that trend and seeing that dynamic that means that both drivers have to qualify, both drivers have to start, and both drivers have to deal with the pressure like this right at the end of the race.
There's no hiding in this VRS SCO Sprint Masters Championship. On board with Toivonen, and you can see running a Simucube wheelbase from their sponsors. He's looking all the way to the inside. Warren squeezed him for a moment. Can he get it done this time around? He's still side by side, but Warren will get the power down slightly better and still able to fend off the challenge. But you'll notice the gaps as inertia is up into 7th. Past BS competition, Lewis, it is 8 tenths between Arnage and Coanda.
I've just got to say that Warren on the brakes into the hairpin, I'm genuinely shocked. I mean, normally, yeah, we talk of seeing a car in a straight line, being a bullet and flying away from one. It's not that often that you see a car being that much better in the braking zone, but that is so important, so special, so impressive. And if that's going to be the continuation, then I would suspect that Arnage are going to be worrying even more, because if they can send it like that, they could, regardless whether you're defending into the hairpin or not, they can almost just go around the outside of you and drive as if you're not even there.
15 minutes to go. Antunes slightly wide and slightly loose. Gap now 7 tenths of a second, and the three-way fight that Lewis McLeod promised is really starting to heat up. Right-hand side of your screen, there's the Valkyrie Esport team trying to recover from that late dive, or rather mistake they had into the hairpin. They are tucked up behind the Lego Technic Esports team with William Esports Razor car right behind them. There is, of course, some fascinating battles up and down the field. You'll note that on the right side, Lewis, we are looking at battles for points-paying positions.
Yeah, again, top 15 play for the points. If you've ever watched MotoGP, it's the same point structure as that. So 25, 20, 16, 13, 11, 10, and I'm not going to do the rest of the numbers because it goes down by 1 from there. And also a point for fastest lap as well. So there is that bonus point to play for, which I believe at the moment is going to be held by the Dane Warren car, the number 93, although don't quote me on that. It's so tight here, this 3-horse race. I don't want to be, one of those kind of drivers to be, or one of those kind of people to be like, it's never going to happen. I do, though, get the vibe that for our Arnage competition, a podium will be fantastic regardless, but you've got to sit there thinking of the potential behind. This might be almost a day done and a sealed letter ready to be sent at any point.
You can see that gap under 3 tenths of a second, and it is Warren with the fastest lap, or rather his team with the fastest lap, 37.819, only half a tenth of a second faster than Jimmy Antunes and the Arnage competition squad. 6/10 separating the lead, and you can see RHG in the distance, 5 seconds adrift, ready to pick up the pieces if any of these guys trip over one another. This is going to be a run down into the hairpin that I think Dane Warren needs to nail, because Toivonen will try and take advantage if he does not get on past the BMW in front, on board with Kova and through the Parabolica in towards turn 6. It is such a heavy braking zone. Warren has been oh so impressive in the race so far. Look at the draft now to the inside. What does Antunes do? Because Toivonen is going to follow him if possible. Side by side, it is Warren a little bit deep under the brakes. He parks it on the apex. Antunes gets hip checked. Side by side, it's 2 BMWs down into Mercedes corner.
Yeah, see, that was exactly what Antunes did not want. It was looking to go for the cutback on Dane Warren, so VRS SCO hit the front, and now it is going to be paramount for Kova to make the position. They have done. I'm genuinely shocked that it wasn't even defended by Antunes and Arnage competition, but alas, they thought there's no point in doing so. But we know that the pace of Kova is enough to challenge the might of VRS Coanda, at least over the last few laps. 11 minutes, 45 seconds to go. Oh, I don't think this is over yet.
Just a clarification from the race control guys, Lewis. The fastest lap bonus point is not for the race. It is for qualifying, so automatically will go to the 93 that finds itself out front. You can see how Warren does what he's been doing over the last few laps, parks it on the apex, and well, unfortunately for Arnage competition, they had nowhere to go, and I think they just decided that, third place, Lewis, it's better than trying to fight too hard here. They'll let Pekka Toivonen try and tangle for the race lead.
And again, if anything happens between Toivonen and Warren, even if they battle hard, that Arnage competition car is going to be back involved with the race lead. The harder that they would fight right now, the more the chasing pack will close, and so they don't want the RHG junior car to be a part of this battle as well. They don't want that to cost them position and get onto the podium. At the moment for Arnage, it's been a fantastic effort. They qualified in 6th, they got up to 3rd, and have been a real star in this show. And for them, they'll definitely want to just hang on to at least a podium spot. It's great points up there, and to kick off the season with such a result would be an enormous confidence booster. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. There is still 10 minutes to go in this race, so you're still talking 6 or 7 laps as the battle's down in the mid-pack. We're seeing that Valkyrie car dropping down past, or trying to repass La Fuente in that Williams Esports Razor car.
Able to do so. Can Mercedes and Coanda follow behind? Well, let's see how this works out, because defended is the move by Valkyrie Esports. Jump on board with the Frenchman Jeremy Bouteloup and run ourselves in towards the stadium section. I must say, it's still 10 minutes to go for Antunes. He can't relax. Julian Sonnen will be chasing him down if he gives him any sort of opportunity. The Pash Gerges and Mitchell de Jong not too far behind. In towards Sachs Curve. Look at just how much hand movement there is from Bouteloup trying to wrestle the weight of the Mercedes around that corner. Front engine car does not always mean the rear is so stable. Look in front, you've got the rear engine Porsche, and then the front mid-engine, as they like to call it, BMW M4. Was mentioning it slightly earlier, Bruno Spengler, not just a BMW Works driver, he's also part of the BS competition squad here on the iRacing service. He's been an influential member of the crew recently, Lewis. He's been part of the team that's updating that BMW M4 on the service. Battle for the race lead. It is side by side. Toivonen and Warren in toward the hairpin. Once more, Warren is deeper under the brakes, but that BMW gets to the apex, gets down on the power, and it's still side by side. Can Warren hold on?
Yeah, they're going to run through the kink, and now this actually could work out for Pekka Toivonen, who's going to have the outside through the arena section. Let's see if he can commit that one on the brakes. We know how good that Porsche is in that braking zone, but no, it's Kova time to the front of the field. Pekka Toivonen potentially going to be passed by Warren, but absolutely not. The BMW finally hits the front.
Don't let those words reserve driver mean anything in this championship. It is Toivonen to the point, but look at Warren. This battle is by no means done and dusted. It has been superb so far. 8 minutes left on the clock. And as we come across the start-finish line, Lewis, I think we've got 6 laps to go by my estimations. 6 more opportunities for a pass to happen.
Yeah, this is going to be absolutely fantastic. Know how good that Dane Warren is on the brakes, and now know that Toivonen knows how to get past the Porsche. So are we in for an absolutely scintillating start to the season? Brilliant stuff between the two of them. And again, anything happens between the two of them, just reminds you that our Nudge competition are waiting in the wings. If you're going to make moves like that, though, it doesn't really cost you that much time. You're not staying side by side for too long. Let's take another look at it. What a send it was. But it was that second half of this move that just worked out in favour of Kova. Absolutely sensational.
And I must say, Antti Ahola is in the Twitch chat right now saying his heartbeat is up. Antti, you might not be needed for the rest of the season. Why not get Pekka in there? Looking forward to seeing Antti back in action in just 7 days' time, hopefully. Still see this move. Oh, it was wonderful, squeezing the car all the way to the anti-cut curve. We rejoin the live pictures, and it's only 3/10 between these two cars. Pekka Toivonen. What a drive it's been so far. And guess who's also popped into the Twitch chat here, Lewis? Well, our ISO WC season champion, points leader, I should say, Valtteri Alander for Kova Esports.
Getting ahead of yourself there. Very much in control of that championship, although it has got very close now. But alas, different season, different day. But Valtteri Alander, this is the kind of thing with teams and stuff, is each team has their own sort of fan base and stuff. You know, they do build up, whether it's even a couple of different people or whatever. And you have those drivers, the other drivers of the team. It's not just a two-driver team as Kova, and you know, most teams aren't in that sense. So it's natural for the other teams, the other drivers, a part of that to jump into Twitch chats to watch the broadcast, to support their fellow teammates. And I get the feeling that Kova are going to need the support right now, because again, that car is looking hungry on the rear end, and you get the vibe that say VRS SCO and SimSport not done with this. It wasn't the car we were expecting to be battling in this position. We were more expecting it to go the way of the 91, so even more of an underdog story inside the camp of VRS SCO and SimSport. But what a battle we are being treated to. If we could have this for all 12 races of the season, I'm happy. I'm signed up. That's excellent.
And we'll get to see Toivonen at least, at most, I should say, one more time. Currently scheduled to slot in for Barcelona round 3 of this championship. But as a reserve driver, you cannot do more than 2 races. So for Toivonen, one more outing. What can he do with 5 minutes left on the clock? And Tunes has done a good job to not fall too far off the back of this point. Let's see what's going to happen. Still side by side, it's Valkyrie and Williams. Those two are having a really fun scrap here today.
Yeah, they've been battling out the last few times. Every attempt that Lafuente's tried to get by, there has been an answer from Lemeray, but this time I think it might just go the way of the Williams Esports Razor car. And look who's also going to try and slot that gap as, it's very, very tight. But Jeremy Bouteloup in the Mercedes VRS Coranda car was almost there. Coming up towards Mobile 1, it's defended from the Valkyrie car. There's still a bit of a send, and it's almost going to work out, but I think it should see the advantage heading the way of the BMW.
Hendrik Kroes in the Biela Racing Team Lamborghini is in the background, and he's ready to pounce as Bootsloop has to concede as they go single file for now. And I tell you what, these are points-paying positions. They're not many points. 13th, 14th, and 15th, all single digits. But in a long championship like this, who knows how things are going to do. As Simone Maria Marcheno has said in the YouTube chat, Lewis, the racecraft in this series has been rather good so far, despite the fact that GT3 sprint racing sometimes is a bit of a bloodbath.
Oh, I mean, I will never forget, before I started doing iRacing, there was a lovely, someone made a video of this beautiful slow-mo coming out of the kink at Road America. With some lovely piano music in the background. It was calm, it was relaxing, and there's one car that enters, and there's another one, and they're all upside down, and there's like a 30-car pile-up. And that's normally what we expect from this kind of racing. We don't normally expect it to be that clean, but boy, have we had a show here today. And this time, Jeremy Bouteloup's going to go around the outside of Nolan Lemeray in that Valkyrie Esports car. They're so close, they're so tight, and I just once again seeing that tight racing, that tight combat, no contact between the two. It's harsh defending, it's harsh attacking, but it's the show that we want. Oh, is it getting involved? There we go for Valkyrie, sent across the arena section. That happened very, very quickly indeed.
Well, I'm going to just from the look that we got there. It was Valkyrie trying to once more just be quite aggressive on the defense. I've also noticed, not sure if you saw it, Lewis, De Jong down the timing screen. Here's the first look here, and okay, I'll correct myself right off the bat. I don't think Valkyrie Esports even turned to the left there. Just a bit unfortunate that in such hard racing, things happen there. And strong charge for the Nolan Lemeray driven car, at least in the second half of the race, comes unstuck. This is that other incident I was referring to. Inertia.
It's gonna be a big hit.
It's going to be a hit, and well, for Mitchell de Jong, he goes for a bit of a ride, but able to at least get that car pointed back in the right direction. Not too many positions lost there.
Yeah, see, now you have to say it about the racing standards and stuff, and then this stuff all happens. It's terrible, you know. It's not just me with the commentators, Kurt. It's fine. I will say, though, that for the inertia car, that is the second time that has happened, that they've made contact in the braking zone with the car ahead.
I'll just say it's not my fault. Let's blame Simone Maria Marcheno, not me.
I mean, there is that, but you did say it.
I did say it, so ultimately, I mean, let's
you must
be real.
bear the responsibility, sir.
Yeah, and let's be real. In terms of commentators' curses, I'm pretty awful when it comes to my track record. Only 2 minutes to go, and I do think we've got 2 laps left in today's race. You can see this battle on the edge of the top 20. Eric Goldner right in the meat of the sandwich. Watching as well as Pekka Toivonen coming through Sachs curve, so he might only have 1 more lap here. These are not points-paying positions, but all of these drivers want to start this season off on the right tone.
Absolutely. I mean, even if it's just like putting on a last lap overtake or anything, it's the confidence booster. Coming out of the final corner now, considering the time that's left, this is it. We are starting the final lap of the race. White flag will be in the air. Toivonen for Kova leading from VRS SCO, and it's looking good. Half a second between the two might well just be enough. It was more so in the region of 0.3 where there was the worry, but for Kova, from that second spot, it's looking all right.
So 1 more opportunity for Warren as they come onto the back straightaway. He's a bit too far behind to use that draft and throw some sort of late race move here. So 60 seconds on the clock. What a drive, first from Tuomas Tatila and now from Pekka Toivonen. They're representing Finnish esports oh so well. And this entire Kova team has really been stepping their game up here in 2021. Of course, only really came together as an organization in sim racing in 2020, and I'm really looking forward to the second half of the year for the Finnish outfit.
Yeah, they're a brand that has been in esports for a little while. They've topped wherever. They've been a big name everywhere else. Now they moved over into sim race. We've had that conversation about them before, about their movement into sim racing, and you'd be almost forgiven for thinking, well, you know, if they're an esports team everywhere else, maybe they're not, they're not going to be the strongest they can be in this. But boy, oh boy, they go from strength to strength, and if they end up going to the next couple of corners, beating VRS SCO and SimSport, it just shows how good they are.
So out of the penultimate corner, what a first race it has been. If this is what we're going to see over the next 11 races, keep yourselves buckled in. It's Pekka Toivonen across the line. It's Kova Esports that take the first victory here in the VRS SCO Sprint Masters. You can see wiping his sweat off. It is a hot summer day for him, but he's going to have to regroup himself to start race number 2. Great drive from Dane Warren, just unable to contend with the might of Toivonen in the closing stages. Jimmy Antunes, 4 seconds adrift at the end of the race, but he holds on to a podium position in Arnage Competition's debut in Sports Car Open competition. Julian Sun and Pash Gergis 4th and 5th, with Felix Kronbach for BS Competition in 6th. Expect some penalties there. The edge of the top 20, of course, lots of battling here. What a race one, Lewis. And based on what we've seen, like I said, get yourself buckled in. Race number 2 should be a roller coaster.
Yeah, absolutely. I do get the feeling, and I can't tell you why, I just got this vibe that I brought it up before, that we did the Sprint Challenge yesterday. We've done the Sprint Masters here. We've had 3 races in total, all here at Hockenheim. And of those, second place has been the position to start, not from the actual race start itself, but more so from that end position, that all 3 times it has been the driver starting on the outside of the front row, and that team taking victory.
You do like your trends, Lewis. Is that something you think we're going to see over the rest of this season? Because I tell you what, second place doesn't get you that bonus point, but you might want to just slow yourself down knowing the form book as it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I love stats. I love it when they come together. Whether that's going to come to an end in the next race, potentially. If that's going to be a trend for the season, that's a very, very interesting one in itself. But let's be honest, about being the fastest team on race day, and at the moment, that's Kova.
And slowing themselves down and celebrating is Pekka Toivonen and Tuomas Tatula. It's 7/10 the gap at the end of the day, but Dane Warren will be slightly disappointed that fastest lap does not convert itself into race victory. Jimmy Antunes in the 23, wonderful debut for the Pink Machine here in Sports Car Open competition. Watch out for them over the course of this season. Julian Sonnen, well, the juniors had a very good run for R8G. Roman Grosjean hopefully watching on from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course and cheering his young guns on with Pash Gerges, Felix Kornbach, Matti Kaidasoa, Louis Najner, and Mitchell de Jong through 9th. Zach Campbell, one of the biggest movers in the top 10. He's up 4 positions. Great to see for the Apex Racing team. They're able to work their way forward. Lego Technic Tommy Osgaard will not be so happy about having to fight himself back from contact between Joshua Rogers and Mac Backham. They finish in 11th with Williams Esports in 12th. VRS Coanda, Jeremy Bootsloop in the Mercedes in 13th. With the Biela Racing Team Euronics Lamborghini, best of them in 14th position. Core Sim Racing, the Ferrari shared by Oscar Rene and Carly Jansen in 15th with Dakota Fripp. Our biggest mover, 12 positions on the day, up into 16th in the Audi for Vendaval Sim Racing. Valkyrie Esports, the Apex Racing Team, Urano Esports, and Energy Sim Sports, they all miss out on points to round out the top 20. With 8 more cars making it to the checkered flag. Sindre Setsource brings the Core Sim Racing Mercedes across the line with Pure Sims in 22nd, Energy Sim Sport in 23rd. Yannick Hiru for the other Core Sim Racing Ferrari, they're in 24th with a couple of cars then mixed up in some early race incidents. Thibaut Casabon, Andre Melchers, Jack Sedgwick, and Cooper Webster also finishing on the lead lap. So there are your race results, of course somewhat unofficial because Race Control will take a look at this entire set of results and go through a number of incidents there. But I must say, Lewis, just as we were saying in the middle of the race, Simona Maria Marcheno did say it. We had some wonderful racecraft there, but when you have racing this close, sometimes it just goes wrong.
It's kind of the expectation that, you know, you're racing with some of the very best, and we can see that here, that when they go side by side, the limits are pushed.
3 wide into turn 1, and I tell you what, Kova was not backing out there. You can also see the Inertia Sim Racing Mercedes really got swarmed on the start. Everyone just jockeying for track position, and given how clean lap number 1 was in race 1, if they can do the same in race 2, let's see what they're able to do. I've just seen, by the way, that Bo Albert is jumping in on the Simona Maria Marcheno blame game. Let's be real, Simona, probably more our fault given our track records of the commentator's curse. On board with Urano as we run our way down into the arena section, trying to look at some of the action from this race number 1. We've got a little bit of a break here now, Lewis. Drivers get a few moments to just get their heart rates down, to get some water into their systems, maybe go use the bathroom. Qualifying underway in 20 minutes time.
Yeah, that's why we take a look back at that fantastic race 1. They get to do this all over again. This will get their blood pumping and get them ready for the upcoming racing. Because, like you say, 60 minutes will be back on the clock, and we'll see more thrilling stuff like this. 3 wide between Valkyrie Core and Urano Esports, the other core car getting involved in this. It was a charge forwards from Valkyrie, and then in the second stint of the race, looking backwards, which was intense for them, but really did put on a great show. Shame they left it without points.
There was Carl Jansen getting a little bit shoved off the track. Fortunately, he had his teammate behind him to just let him slot back into line. It was hectic in the start of the race, as now the comments on BOP really are picking up. Oh, it was a send from Williams Esports, wonderfully controlled to be able to get to the inside of the Valkyrie Esports BMW, just behind the Lego Technic racing car. I must say, one of my favorite liveries on today's grid. Really entertaining stuff, and we'll get a couple more looks of all of this action. We're also hoping here, Lewis, to get some interviews with the top 3 drivers.
Yeah, indeed, and we certainly do want to hear what they had to say after a truly fantastic race. The R8G, they're struggling on the rear end. This was for 4th place, as looking backwards a bit further down the order, looking at the other VRS Commander. There's quite a lot of VRS Commander SimSport cars on the grid, but we were saying before, they're split between Porsches and Mercedes. Plenty of great action, seeing I can't even remember which one was the inertia car that was making contact with the rear, and this is one of them. That was exactly what I wanted to say, right on the rear of the R8G, and that is not the only time that the Mercedes made contact with a car in that braking zone. It's actually the second time that was done on a Porsche as well.
More trends to keep our eyes out on is there. You can see over the inside curve, the Lego car really just getting a bit squirrely. Opened the door for Josh Rogers to dive it down the inside of the Lamborghini behind. What a charge it was from Rogers in race number 1. He'll be now doing the start of race number 2. Sorry, he'll do the qualifying for race number 2 and finish race number 2 as well. Getting myself a little bit mixed up. Take a look at this though, down into the hairpin. What's going to happen here with the Mercedes in the background as we ride on board with Rogers.
This is, just a little tight stuff in the braking zone. I think this might actually be on board with the Williams Esports Razor car, right on the rear end of the Valkyrie. Got pressure from behind from the VRS SCO and a SimSport Merc. It was obviously intense battling here, but intense battling that was closing up at the front end of the field as well. Remember how tight that all got? We'll take a look at the change for the race lead, I'm sure, which was a truly sensational effort from Kova to retake that lead, but the pit stop sequence as well in the middle of the race, just adding that extra little bit of spice. Was Kova on top at the end of the day though, and in brilliant fashion.
Dominant second stint there from Pekka Toivonen after Tuomas Tätälä kind of slid backwards. I just wonder if that was the strategy from the get-go, Lewis. Save the tires and allow Toivonen to charge to the front.
Potentially. There's all sorts of strategy games. It may be an hour race, but there's plenty on the table for them to move forward, and plenty of points up for offer, which 25 of them go the way of Kova.
So, first blow then to Toivonen and Tätälä. I don't think we're going to get our interviews here, so just wait now for the next 15 minutes before we roll ourselves into qualifying for race number 2. I tell you what, for those of you just tuning in now on the Virtual Racing School Twitch or live on RaceSpotTV, during our pre-show we had a wonderful track guide produced by Randolph Chenworth for this broadcast. Take a look at this wonderful track, Hockenheimring, with the world champion Joshua Rogers.
Welcome to the VRS Circuit Walk for round 1 of the VRS SCO Sprint Series at Hockenheim. I'm VRS coach Josh Rogers, driver of the number 91 VRS SCO and a SimSport Porsche 911 GT3R. Hockenheim is quite a technical circuit with high-speed sections and hairpin passing opportunities that will make for great racing. Setup can be quite difficult though, balancing high speeds and car stability, but all in all, a fun and challenging track for the drivers. Join me while I take a closer look at what makes Hockenheim so special. Right at the start of the lap, we get to one of the most important corners, turn 1. Getting it right can really help build your confidence for the lap, as it's quite fast and the margin for error is very small with the anti-cut curb on the inside. Then, on exit, it's much tighter than it looks, and you can't push too wide before dealing with those track limits on exit. Overall, a lot of fun and very important to get right to carry that speed into turn 2. So coming off turn 1, it should be on the left-hand side of the track. The key here is that turn 2 leads straight into turn 3. So you want to come off turn 2 roughly in the middle of the track and take a line that smoothly apexes turn 3 and lets you stay flat out there to set up our run onto the straight. Like I said, the exit speed here is also very important, as it will give you any particular opportunity to passing or defending into turn 6. Now down at the hairpin though, easily the best passing area on the circuit. Going to be doing roughly 255 kilometers an hour after the parabolica, and the hairpin is roughly 60 kilometers an hour, so it's the longest braking zone on the circuit. It's important to get the car stopped at the apex and not push wide on the exit to prevent those undercut moves that I'm sure we'll see throughout the race. So here at turn 11, we enter the stadium section. It's really quite tricky here with the wall on your left, almost like a street circuit right up against the fence, scraping the paint off the mirrors. You also need to be careful of that exit curb too, as it's quite bumpy and can catch you out, especially if you've trimmed the aero out of the car for that top speed. Now coming to the final part of the track though, overall, the entire complex is quite narrow, so very difficult to make passes here, but it's very important to get right, as this can allow you to open or close the gap before those drafting opportunities later on throughout the lap. Turn 15 will also be very important to watch out for track limits, as well as cars sneaking into the pits for their driver swaps and compulsory pit stops. So now, since we've taken a closer look at some of the more important parts of the track, let's put it all together and have a look at an onboard of a lap. So here we are on board for a lap at the Hockenheimring, trying to get the best run as we can onto the straight here, using up all of that exit curb on the left, preparing ourselves for this tight turn 1, using this little bit of curb on the left on entry to get the car rotated, 4th gear here, missing that anti-cut on the inside and making sure to obviously push those track limits on the exit. As we come up towards turn 2 here, we're focusing primarily on our exit speed here, so we'll take a nice late turn in here, 1st gear for a second, before driving the car off nice and square, making sure we can run through turn 3 flat out as we set ourselves up for the run down the back straight. Here, we'll just be focusing on our gear shifts, shifting up at that last red light, plugging this left curve nice and tightly to try and travel that shorter distance, preparing ourselves for this huge braking zone here. Starting to brake just at the start of the curb on the left there, nice and straight, focusing primarily on the exit once again. Touch of the inside curb before straightening the car up nice and quickly for the exit. So you can see you're running our way towards the first stadium section here. Tricky left kink here, trying to keep it flat out, but still keeping the car close enough to the right for the braking zone here into this left. Down to 2nd gear, making sure to just touch this inside curb, but miss the anti-cut. That's going to be crucial. Short shift to 3rd here on the entry, just touching the inside curb. There's a big bump on the inside, something that we'll need to watch out for sure throughout the race. Running nice up and close against this wall on the left here, like I said earlier. Making sure to touch this inside curb, watching out for the bumpy curb on exit, managing the balance of the car. Looking for the camber here in this left as we enter the stadium section, really taking advantage of that camber just like we would in NASCAR. Jumping through these curbs in this last sector, down the gears. Using a touch of this inside curb in the second last corner, try and help rotate the car before focusing on these track limits and really setting up our run onto the front straight once again. As you can see though, that's a lap of the Hockenheimring. So that's that for the very first circuit walk of the 2021 VRS SCO Sprint Series. I wish all the drivers the best of luck for this weekend. Hope you're tuning in, and I'll see you out there.
So race 1 is in the books. Welcome back to RaceSpotTV and the Virtual Racing School Twitch for coverage of this 2021 VRS Sports Car Open Sprint Masters Series. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside, as always, is Lewis McLeod with Hugo Luis down in the production booth. What a race number 1 that was. And I mean, really, I'm really loving the main thing here, Lewis, is diversity, not just of drivers, but in cars as well. For so long, the special events on the iRacing service have been one-make competitions. This is very much not the case. Lewis is unfortunately muted right now, so we'll get back to him right there. Lewis, let's get your... There we go. Professional broadcasters. Yeah.
Very good.
Let's get your thoughts on this then.
Yeah, so it's of course wide open. I was saying about the the fact that we had BMWs battling it out for the race lead with the Porsches as well. Mercedes are up there, Lamborghini's the only one that's really kind of seeming to struggle. Of course, we were saying this before, is about the Ferrari, which is fair enough. It's kind of one of those things at the start of the season. Maybe it might just be a bit off, but we can adjust that as the season goes on. You were saying it's a round by round adjustment as the season goes on. So I'm sure we get those issues fixed.
And really, I must say, when you have balance of performance that you have to apply on each of the cars, Race Control has done a good job to not really listen to too much of the haters, if you will. They've gone and done what they wanted to do. Let's talk about the big news that dropped this morning, just an hour before we went live, Lewis. Virtual Racing School and Sports Car Open, it's not just about the Sprint Challenge and the Sprint Masters series that are going to take place over the next 2 months. It is also about, at the end of July, the Virtual Racing School 24 Hours of Spa, $10,000 in prize money on the line. That is going to be a treat. Just a week after the iRacing special event, but this one will have a lot more on the line.
Yes, I mean, some people, people love their 24-hour racing. If they could do a 24-hour race every weekend, they could, but they would, but I certainly wouldn't, because it is hard work. It's grueling, especially when there's, like, say, for example, prize money on the line, so you're racing against the very best. And sure, for an iRacing special event, you want to win them. You want to, because you want to be a part of it. You want to be a part of that moment. You want to win your split, whatever split that is. But when there's prize money on the line, it's devastating when there is a mistake, when there is an issue, when there's anything that affects it. And I mean, what a brilliant thing to have, though. I love me some endurance racing, especially when there's something properly on the line.
Sign-ups for that will open on 9th of July. You can get yourselves entered. There will be pre-qualifying. Teams from the Sprint Masters will be automatically eligible, but at least 20 grid slots will be open for the public to fight over. That is always an interesting proposition. Uninterrupted coverage live on RaceSpotTV, and we're delighted to be able to bring that to you. Let's talk a little bit then about Race 2 here, Lewis. The drivers are just about 7 minutes away from getting underway for qualifying. And again, there is no place to hide in this series. The driver that qualified for race number 1 is sitting on the sidelines watching their teammate qualify this time.
Yeah, it's where we said there's absolutely nowhere to hide. You've got to deliver every single session. It's not just about, oh, well, we can maybe not do well in this race or whatever. No, you need to deliver 100% of the time, which does mean that the idea that we're going to see a Kova VRS SCO and SimSport front row lockout might be looking a bit more questionable. They looked fantastic in race 1, did Kova. Whether they're going to be able to get on the front row again, we'll have to wait and see. And is it going to be about qualifying in second place again?
Well, and what we saw yesterday, Lewis, was the front row changed around completely in the GT4s. Race 1 was fiercely forward taking pole position there. They dropped to almost 16th position for race 2.
Yeah, it's wild. Like you say, you get a different driver involved in the mix, and your teams move forward. Some were stronger than others, but what we did notice as well is that those teams that didn't qualify so well in the second race, it was more so that it was the same teams themselves. It was like a group from the SimRC. Core qualified really, really well in race 2, but not in race 1, and that was kind of switched around between SimRC. So we're seeing that kind of open up. So maybe Coanda being split between the Mercedes and the Porsche. Maybe their ideas between their drivers. I don't know. We'll have to see how this one. It's a completely different ball game in this because they're so good, every single driver on the grid.
Well, we've got 6 minutes to go until qualifying. Let's take a look at a little bit of a highlight package to get you excited. The VRS SCO 24 Hours of Spa. Great to have SCO returning for the summer. Of course, usually the Sports Car Open season runs in the winter. That's the endurance category, though. They've had special events. They've had the SCO GT Championship a couple of years ago. But this, though, is a completely different ballgame. To have such a big prize pool on the line, to have a 24-hour special event, the entire team, Marius Golenbeck, Dominic Engel, and Ronald Grossman doing a lot of work to get everything organized. Thank you to them. They're also in race control for all the action here. By the way, we would always love interacting with you in our chats here, so do let us know what you think is going to happen in race number 2. Mystic Lewis, let's start with a prediction for pole position.
Whoa, you're going to throw that one to me already? Okay, I'm going to go for it. I think the charge forward, you know where I'm going with this. You know it's got to be Josh Rogers. The pace, I think the disappointment of race 1, that'll be hitting them, that they didn't qualify very well. Now Josh Rogers will be the driver qualifying. I'm picking that car to take pole position.
I think I'm probably going to agree with you. I mean, he's what's the award core? He won the Tag Heuer Esports Tag Heuer Connected Watch for the most pole positions in qualifying in 2021, almost locking out the season with the fastest laps in that portion of the race weekend. Might be similar kind of things here, but of course he had to fight his way through race number 1. See what it's like for race 2. In terms now then of the future, let's preview the action coming up. Of course, here from the Hockenheimring. Next time, we'll head to sunny Spain and Barcelona to the historic Grand Prix layout, which means you don't have to race that god-awful chicane.
Yeah, absolutely. Loving the faster flowing corners, which I get. I'm going to say that I do understand in some sense why it's not in Formula 1, don't get me wrong, it should be, but whatever. Because obviously the amount of dirty air that you're dropping off going through that, what will be the penultimate corner, is extreme. You wouldn't be able to follow anyone remotely close to there. It means the racing would be, well, probably quite similar to what it is, to be honest, but whatever. In these, though, less downforce, less dirty air, more being able to stick in that slipstream. That is going to be so much fun.
And you can see there's only 3 minutes left in practice before the drivers have to roll out for qualifying. So this is when the tension starts to build. When you're driving, Lewis, what do you feel like in these moments right before qualifying? Because open qualifying, much like we've seen in the ISOWC, if you have an incident, you cannot head back out onto track. You are done for qualifying. You have to make sure you get a banker lap in first before you start pushing.
Absolutely. I mean, with these kind of sessions, it's all about, like I say, building yourself into the session. You know, you've done your racing laps and obviously everyone's well practiced, fair enough. But right now, I'd want to start the session. You want your own bit of track. You don't want to be involved in everyone else's stuff. You don't want to be, if there's a crash ahead of you that you then get involved in, you don't want to be anywhere near any of that. You either want to be the first car around or you want to be in your own bit of space. And that's going to be really, really crucial, is not chasing the slipstream so much, especially not on the first part. Get a lap on the board, get yourself comfortable, and then start attacking with those kind of things. Start taking the risks, start trying to stick onto the back of drivers, start pushing that limit at turn 1 and through the final corner as well.
Maybe we'll see the draft games being played slightly early here. I'm just taking a look at the timing screen. Guess who's at the top? It's the 93 car of Charlie Collins in practice. Would not be surprised if they take pole position, but like you said, watch out for the 91. Akova, Thomas Tattler there in second, so they might have a repeat of the front row from race number 1. Great to see, though, Logitech Gioltas Esports. It was a difficult race 1 for them, Lewis, after the contact with BS Competition right off the bat. Then the shift to trouble that dropped Caruso down the order. They did a good job to fight back before that contact with Urano.
Yeah, I did see Bo Albert in chat a bit earlier. You were bringing that up. Logitech Gioltas Esports commentating on a race with them this morning where they were victorious in the GT category at Watkins Glen. So they've had an all right start to the day, but race 1 here, not good. But again, this is the beautiful thing about this. It's not about reverse grids. There's no gimmicks like that. You get to come back and you get to prove yourself again. And so for that, going through qualifying, going through the earlier stage of the race, building yourself into it, it's just enough to reassert confidence into the car and build yourself through for a much better race too.
And of course, I'm trying to think about the time difference for some of those guys. Of course, Gioltas Esports, right. They're another group of... another team, I should say, that have gone to the team house format. So very exciting news for them. Bo Albert now lives in the team house, started to stream a bit more regularly as well, now that he is not beholden to the poor internet that some parts of Australia are dealing with. This team house model, it is a really interesting thing. It's being used widely in other esports, but it's finally becoming a much more common thing in sim racing.
Yeah, when do we get our RaceSpot house? When do we get a broadcast house? Let's make that one happen. That'll be the next one. No, I love it. I mean, the idea, yeah, exactly. The idea that we can have all the teams sharing a house, it makes things a bit easier when it comes to particularly endurance racing. It's kind of, there's a different vibe with it. It's same as if you go to a LAN event for a team and you're all there in the same room. It's a much more cohesive environment. And that kind of stuff just adds to it. It's easier for practice, easier for communication, because rather than going, oh, well, the car's a little bit understeering, you can actually make gestures and stuff and be like, it's doing this through here and it's doing that through there, and you can communicate that issue so much better.
Well, you can see checkered flag has flown for practice. Cars about to roll out then for qualifying too. I would just say on the team house thing, some people have maybe unfairly said that sim racing is not something that necessarily benefits from a team house because it is also quite an individual sport. But at the end of the day, you work as a team to prepare. Talk to someone like the Apex Racing team where they're doing so many different events. I saw their schedule from July through August. They are going to be very, very busy. Here is the driver wall once more. It is great to have webcams from every single driver. You can get an onboard look with some of them. Other drivers like Pash Gergis only really showing you the view of their screen. Some focus for some of these drivers, but for someone like Mitchell de Jong, he is watching on as Joshua Rogers, his teammate, rolls out onto track for qualifying. 20 minutes to set your fastest lap time, and already you're starting to see the checkup into the hairpin.
Now, let's say, for example, like you say, you've done your qualifying, you're now waiting to start the race. You can't do anything about where you're going to start. That's your teammates. If you're sat there wondering, what position am I going to start this race in? You're sat on the sidelines. There's nothing that you can do to affect this. What do? I'd tell you what I would do. I'd leave the room. I'd walk away. I'd be like, right, I know that it's qualifying, I know it's important, but if they've got support from the team, I am stepping away and just breathing, just allowing whatever it is to happen. Because if not, if you're there and you see the laps fading or whatever, and maybe qualifying in a lower position, your heart could sink. You might get too involved, too emotional. That, you know, maybe not an ideal way to start the race. You need to be calm and collected at the beginning.
I've just seen a wonderful tweet, by the way, from VS Competition, who not just a sim racing outfit now, although they did start that way. They've recruited a Rocket League squad. They've been undergoing their own boot camp of sorts. They've got their own opportunity to try their hands behind the wheel. I'm seeing some interesting pictures. I wonder just how quick they were. Slightly different sort of a skill set from Rocket League to iRacing, and of course we have covered some Rocket League here on RaceSpotTV, or as we called it back in the day, RocketSpotTV. Hopefully we'll see those BS Competition guys having a bit more of a clean race this time around, waiting for the lap times to come in. Interesting names to keep our eyes on. I must say, for Charlie Collins, watch out for him this time around, because both him and Warren looked very, very comfortable. They are in the draft right now with their teammate working together.
Yeah, it's Josh Rogers sat on the rear end, but of course you can see there Martin Kronke right on the rear end. But these are the things that I like Kronke's position right now. There's a decent amount of space. I think, I don't know about you, I get the vibe that Josh Rogers might be a little bit too close, because in that slipstream might have to lift out a little bit of it towards the end, and then misses the braking point anyway. Whew. There's a collector's item. Don't see too many of those from Josh Rogers, and then getting out of the way of the preceding train, courtesy of his teammate being at the head of it. Do not see mistakes from Josh Rogers very often, but there is one.
Doing the right thing, I think, to just wait and bide his time until the rest of the cars cycled on through. Now releases Charlie Collins a little bit more with the Core Sim Racing Mercedes, a couple of seconds behind us. Sorry, not the Core Sim Racing, the Coanda Mercedes with the Core Sim Racing Ferrari in close pursuit. You also see the Apex Racing team there. What's it going to be for Charlie Collins? A 32 and counting, as I already see the Mercedes of the Coanda car down onto pit road. Here's the onboard look with Collins across the line. Does not look too impressed with that, and is only good enough for third fastest right now. We'll wait and see if the times pick on up.
Yeah, Rusin, the driver, of course, we were focused on, or the team rather, we were focused on in that Valkyrie car that did not qualify very well last time. I think it was 26th we were talking about? Yeah, it was 26th place that Valkyrie qualified. So way down the order, looking to put an end to that one. Potentially even starting this one for pole position, although it's a long way to the end of the session. Just a bit of a note to the previous session, and this is actually very similar to the trend that we saw in the sprint challenge as well. Of course, again, GT4, so it doesn't actually apply directly, but Q1 versus Q2 times, that there was a second difference. It was a second slower in Q2 than Q1, and we're actually seeing that now. Pole position in the first qualifying session, obviously done by Dane Warren in the number 93, was a 1:36.970. We are around about a second off of that right now.
Well, I think there's two factors that goes into this, Lewis. One is the fact that it is a separate race session, so there is newly generated weather that will go up, and you never have a guarantee that two sessions are ever going to have the same sort of weather conditions here on the iRacing service. The second part of that is that we started qualifying at about 11:40 in sim for qualifying one. Now, in sim time is about 2:30 p.m. So right about the peaks, temperature window here in terms of track conditions. Does make that a little bit trickier for these cars to slide their way around. Interesting to see how that works for them. You can already see that down on pit lane, clearly tires falling off quite quickly in qualifying too.
Yeah, we were going to say about this that in Q1, I'm not sure about Q1, but certainly over the race, you were talking about, we were saying that it was mid to low 30s degrees. I think it was about 32 when I checked. Roundabout was the track temperature. Right now it is 41 degrees Celsius. So it's a pretty toasty track right now, fairly hot. And this, to be honest, to me, especially considering how well they kept their tyres together, this plays into the hands of the likes of Kova, surely.
You're right. They clearly look comfortable on the tyres. Bottom right portion of the screen, you see the Coanda house and the amount of rigs that they have set up there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You're not even seeing the command center that Philip Stam, team manager, is sitting behind right now, and I'm sure he's commanding those, giving the instructions to the rest of the team. Wonderful look at the team house. If you haven't seen, by the way, it was a really nice picture of a Lego, half real world Porsche 911 that was parked outside the house as Tumas Tattler, guess where he goes? To the top of the timing sheets.
got to say that. So yeah, obviously seeing that photograph, and you kind of wonder, okay, if you were actually to make this, whatever, if you actually had to think about it properly, which side's the heavier car? Surely the Lego side is much heavier, because think of it this way, I mean, if you've built some Lego before, you kind of think, oh, that's quite a bit weighty. How much would the side of the car weigh that's built out of it? That's it's going to be a stonking vehicle.
My parents had a better question, Lewis, which is, how do you even do that? Do you cut the real car in half and then try and affix Lego to
right.
that? How do you move it? So many questions. I must say, it's really nice to have Lego on board with the Commander team. There you see the Lego Technic car, and just a reminder that VRS and Lego are giving away a Lego Technic 911 RSR for every single race weekend. Visit giveaway.sportscaropen.com to learn more and to enter yourself not just for one of 6 911 RSR model kits, but also the season-long giveaway of VRS Direct Force Pro wheelbase. I've also seen on my timing screen for Altus Esports, Jordan Caruso has had a bit of a tangle into the wall. That might be qualifying done for them. If you can get that car back to pit road, you can get some damage repaired, but who knows how things will look for the remaining 12 minutes of the session. The Lego car is really backing up the pack, I feel, right now, as I think that's Kova down onto pit road.
Yeah, potentially just trying to maybe play some games, just get themselves there, right bit of track position, also potentially cooling down the tyres just a little bit before the actual start of the lap, as Mac Backham going to be firing around for his qualifying session in the Lego Technic Esports team, obviously inside the Commander House. You can always tell, again, the classic way to tell if it's inside the Commander House or not is I'm not looking at the rigs, you're not looking at anything else, you look at the carpet, straight away, boom. No one else in the world has carpet that shade of purple, just Coanda.
What are you saying here, Lewis? Are you saying...
I like it.
Okay, good, because I was going to say the interior decorators have done a splendid job to make that really look like a Coanda house.
Right.
You can see in the background, by the way, they've done a great job of shouting out the Lego sponsorship here, not just with all those logos, but you have that 911 RSR in the background for Mac Backham, as well as the Lamborghini and Bugatti models that Lego Technic makes as well. So many fun things. I recently built the Lego Discovery Space Shuttle set for myself, and I'm very much looking forward to this competition you and I are going to have, Lewis. Once we get our own version of these kits, let's see who can build it fastest to show it off on the next race.
Oh, this is on then. This is properly on. I'm gonna harness my Lego building skills.
Did Mac Backham get a little bit sideways there, or was that just my imagination? Because he slowed that car down a little bit too much, and I wonder now if he's going to have to reset himself. Look at the gaps, by the way. First, second, and third separated by just over 1/100th of a second. Tumas Tatula, Fildenez, and Kenny Rusin are putting on a show here and qualifying the top 16 once more, only separated by 0.3 of a second.
Yeah, Yaltine getting a decent improvement and rolling up into 11th spot as well. Got to give a shout out to well, I was about to say that maybe that VRS Commander Simsport weren't doing so hot in this session, and then Charlie Collins and Josh Rogers say no thank you to that as they go 1 and 2 in the session. Rogers 9 thousandths off.
Matches, almost matches, I should say, the gaps that we had before. Coanda then showing up, but showing up with 10 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. Still plenty of time for the other cars to improve, as you see Valkyrie Esports pulling to the side of the road to let on by the 91 of Joshua Rogers. Urano in the Audi slipping through as well. I think that's Nicholas Laubish, who's currently in the 6th position. Watch as the R8G car of Quintin Violate comes around the final couple of corners. 4th position in race number 1. And this is him starting a flying lap. You can see the lap time. That was an out lap. And now full focus on the young Frenchman's face.
And this is it. I can't describe like the level of concentration that a decent qualifying session requires. Of course, I'm sure most of the people watching, we've all had a good share of a nice, decent attempt at qualifying. But it's where like any minor distraction, the window's open and it's just causing a little bit of a breeze. Someone in the distance departing pit lane like we just saw there, or a lock-up from anyone else. All of these things are minor distractions, and some people are better at dealing with them than others. And if there's one thing that I actually can't do, it's having this communication and being like, oh, we'll slipstream you down here and then we'll switch around. Like, no, just let me qualify. I just want to do the lap. I want to get behind the wheel and do what I can do. Clearly, it works out more so for some than others, but looking all right, at least so far.
And I must say, it's wonderful that we have open qualifying here, Lewis, because for so long, I mean, even in sports car open competition, it's Carl Janssen up into 9th for the Core Sim Racing Ferrari. It's been solo car qualifying. You don't have those distractions like you said, and this is more like what it's like in the real world. Things are not always how you want them to be. You have to deal with external factors.
Yeah, like you say, you've got to focus. Treat it like a real session. If I had a choice between an open session or a closed session, I'm open all the way. The only session that tops this kind of qualifying to me, Super Pole. Love a good Super Bowl. Love that one lap to nail everything. But for this, you've got to be open. You've got to be tactical about your approach in qualifying. At the moment for RHG, up there into 12th place. A decent improvement, must be said. But maybe not the level of lap that you'd wish for. But you think if you were to go back through that lap, you were to pick apart every apex, every acceleration, every braking point, I'm sure if you looked at it in detail, you could find 2/10, but the ability to put that together on the lap, that's where the real drivers come into it.
Here comes Kova then. They are coming, I think, to start a flying lap. It is Tuomas Tatila behind the wheel of the car. Now coming out of the final corner. Let's see what they can do. Just under 1/10 separates the top 4. For the 10th of a second, separating the top 5. There we go. Logitech Gioltas Caruso fixed whatever damage he has. He's now up into 3rd position.
That is absolutely superb. Yeah, I did wonder if he was going to be able to get that one sorted and come back out, but Logitech Gioltas Esports were, like I said, they moved forward really well in the early stages of the race, and then unfortunately after a slowdown and various issues, it just didn't work out for them this time, though, wanting to put an end to that. But look at some of these teams up there. Like I say, they're not teams that we saw qualify very well. Logitech Gioltas Esports, BS Competition, Valkyrie, Vendevold, we didn't see these teams qualify that well in the previous race, which now they have qualified. Even if they raced well, is this now are they gonna continue to race in the same way? Is Valkyrie maybe even in the house for a win? I'd say that's a little bit pushing it past, but you never really know. BS Competition gets ahead of Kova, and Kova now just on the cusp of the top 5.
Really close are the times. Take a look at Tatila. I said it was a hot finish summer. I wonder how much he is sweating. We heard from Valtteri Alander just a week ago that he was having similar issues in the ISOWC and just trying to keep himself cool throughout the course of a race. And now Tatila, who's already, I'm sure, been in that rig for several hours, comes into the penultimate couple of corners. This is an important lap time because only 5 minutes are on the board, so this will be his second to last run. And in fact, he's down onto pit road to get a fresh set of rubber to build himself up for that final flying lap.
Yeah, smart move. If the lap's not going well, even if you're improving by to be fair, if you're improving by a few thousands, then keep going, considering how close they are. But you know what I mean. If it's close, if it's not that great, then you might as well bail. You've got 5.5 minutes left of the session. Come into the pit lane, get some fresh tyres, and focus on that final lap of the session. You'll see very, very consistently that there are some drivers that, for whatever reason, at the final moment of the session, every single time, that last lap that they do is always the best lap that they can put on. It's impressive. It's just that ability to answer the call when it is asked. But with 5 minutes left, there's still plenty of time.
What I call the Ayrton Senna syndrome, when you're just able to magic out a 10th of a second when literally everyone thought it would be impossible. The 71 for Inertia, they started in the top 10, moved themselves up into 14th with their driver bringing that Mercedes across the line. Joshua Rogers coming around the penultimate couple of corners as Tuomas Tatila back out onto track. Here is the 91 car. It was looking quite good on the timing screen. What will it be out of the final corner? Uses all of the runoff available to him. It is fastest. It is a 37.603, 2/10 quicker than his teammate in second.
Wow, there we go. That is a monster lap time. Absolutely sensational. And that is the kind of lap that we expect from Josh Rogers. I mean, he's not one of the greatest sim racers on the planet for no reason. He is a fantastic driver that knows exactly how to wrestle it. And if there's someone who suffers with the Ayrton Senna syndrome that you're talking about there, it would be him. Just able to put everything on the line, built up into the session nicely. That mistake didn't cost him, and boom, pole position at the moment, looking to go the way of the 91. Still not over yet, but 2/10 is a monster gap to overcome.
I see Phil Dinez is rolling himself out of pit road. Charlie Collins is still stationary. Needs to get that car out there if he wants to get out in time to set a final qualifying lap time. I saw Jordan Caruso going slowly to let on by a number of cars, so he's out there as Collins releases himself on the pit road. There's, I believe, Kova going very, very slowly. It's all about just managing the tires to bring them into the optimal window for one flying lap here around the 4.5 kilometers of the Hockenheimring.
Yeah, it's not just about them being at the right temperature. They've got to be at the right temperature at the right time. It's all well and good them being in the perfect window right now, but that does nothing for you, because when you take off and then you head round the final sector of the racetrack, then they're too hot or too cold. It really is a juggling act rather, to get that lap right on board with Jordan Caruso. It would be great to see the lap from on board the Logitech G Autos esports driver.
That is what I do believe we are about to do. He is setting himself up behind the core Mercedes to go for one more attempt. Here comes Caruso in through the final corner to start a lap in his BMW M4. 4.5 kilometers with 16 corners to go. Turn one, use as much of the curb on the inside without clipping that anti-cut curb and roll yourself all the way out to the track limits, being careful to avoid the 1X. In towards turn two, this is crucial, braking just after the 100 meter board. Get yourself down to the inside and all the way to the right-hand side to swing yourself through turn 3 and 4 to run yourself onto the back straightaway with as much momentum as you can. This is the Parabolica. It's called a turn on the track map, but let's be honest, that's like Road America calling turn two. In towards the hairpin. This is the heaviest braking point on the track. Saw a number of cars missing it during the race. Caruso all the way to the apex and nicely rolls himself onto the power. You can see using that curb on the outside, just build up his momentum and in towards the middle sector on the lap. Through turn 7, flat out kink, set yourself up on the right-hand side for a left-hand 90-degree corner, but you need to be careful once more not to use the anti-cut curb. Caruso a little bit squirrely getting down onto the power, and now in through turn 10, just trying to roll his momentum into the final sector where you run yourself up to the wall in towards turn 11, Mobile 1. Use all the curb on the inside and the outside. You could see the Mercedes almost kicking up some gravel as we head towards Sachs Curve, camber it in so you can carry a bit more speed than you think you can, and in towards the final couple of corners, single file. Use as much of the track as you feel comfortable with, but not onto the drag strip on the outside of this penultimate corner. You can see Caruso through the final corner, focus on his face. What is the lap time going to be for the 43? The core sim racing Mercedes has made a mistake. Caruso improved. It's not by much. He will hold on to third position. I
was going to say, it looked like a really, really tidy lap. I cannot believe that you classified Parabolica turn. Don't get me wrong, it's not really a corner, but to compare it to turn 2 Road America, come on, man, that's brutal.
I just had to, because Road America and NASCAR on Twitter have been having a bit of a back and forth about the corner numbers. I just had to throw my opinion into the mix as well. Here comes Charlie Collins. This is the car that we should be watching for, because Joshua Rogers is through the final corner. I think he's setting up to start his final flying lap, because of course you can finish the lap that you're on when the checkered flag comes out. Collins knows that he is done for qualifying. Does not look as though this is a fast lap for him. I wonder if he's being caught out by the time here. There's 30 seconds. If he's not, he's coming down onto pit road. Qualifying done for the Welshman.
Yeah, I mean, maybe seeing it as secure for second place. Maybe that was what the return to pit. I mean, obviously, you're going to go and gun it for pole position if you can, but more so was a defensive strategy. As an interesting line to end the session from Josh Rogers there on the exit of turn 4 onto turn 5 around the Parabolica. Still continuing on with the lap is Jordan Caruso in that Logitech G Autos esports car. Not sure how much there's going to be able to grab from that, but every time I say that kind of stuff, I'm rubbish. But I think maybe more so to practice a racing style pit lane entry rather than anything else.
Indeed, that's what he does, as Barney the flagman vigorously waving that checkered flag. Phil Dinez, is he going to go faster? A couple of corners still to go for him, as the Valkyrie esports car is going to go deep and release the 89 of the Zebra in towards the final sector. We must say, shout out to Turner Motorsports, who won yesterday in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. Bill Oberlin continuing his stonking record as the winningest driver in American sports car history. Then I had to turn it around for the main IMSA WeatherTech Championship race. Unfortunately, technical issues at the very start for them. Bill Denez now through the final couple of corners. Look at the focus on his face. Known for being an open wheel driver in the real world, but he really has adapted to GT racing on the iRacing service. He comes down onto pit road, makes things quite boring for us. 60 seconds to go then in this qualifying. I don't know if there's anyone still out there, Lewis, that we think will set a flying faster lap time.
No, I don't think there is. I think everyone else is just sort of seeing out the final moments of the session. And just, again, every lap of practice that you do is advantageous. Though, to be honest, I was going to say about pit lane practice for these guys. They don't need to pit lane practice on the exit. It's all about, on the entrance rather, it's all about the exit for them, because they're going to be getting out of the car. We're going to be getting the drivers in that qualified for race 1. They're going to be getting back in, and they're going to be starting this race, continuing on with that trend of absolutely nowhere to hide. You have to deliver every single time you hit the race car. Vendaval Sim Racing, where have they qualified? They've qualified up in 5th spot, so really good effort.
Well, a couple of notes just to hand out to you guys. There is some potential issues here from qualifying. Race control might have to take a look at impeding and escaping during qualifying. Oh, that will shake things up, but let's go ahead and take a look at our starting grid for race number 2. It is the king of qualifying himself, Joshua Rogers. No surprise to see him at the top of the timing sheet, a 1:37.603. He is 2/10 quicker than Charlie Collins, but look then at the margins behind him. Jordan Caruso, 2/10 behind Rogers. Bill Denez still 2/10 behind. Spencer Kostowicz, for Vendaval Sim Racing, inside of Tumas Tattler. Race winners last time around. What can they do from the outside of row number 3? Kenny Rusens for the Valkyrie Esports team qualifying that car. Very impressive from them, with Ricardo Rico in 8th position. Nicholas Laubich, Tommy Osgaard in 10th, with just 0.2 of a second separating 2nd through 10th positions. Carl Janssen in the Ferrari in 11th, with Zach Campbell for the Apex Racing team outside of row number 6, with Quintin Violate and Martus Vitkinen on row 7. Inex Racing, Fila Racing Team Euronics, they'll be on row 8 with Urano and Pure Sims, row number 9. It is Kevin Ellis Jr. in the Apex Racing Team number 98 that qualified there. David Williams outside on the edge of the top 20, just 0.6 between 1st and 20th positions. VRS Coanda R8G, row number 11, with Core Sim Racing 23rd and Williams Esports Razors back in 24th position. Energy Sim Sport 25th, Core Sim Racing, another one of their Ferraris, starts in 26th position, with Energy Sim Sport and Urano Esports rounding out our 28 car grid. For those curious, Bila Racing Team, they were meant to have a second car in competition today, but I think some medical issues have unfortunately precluded them from competing. We wish the best to all of their drivers. Mystic Lewis, it is that time once again. Let's get some predictions for race number 2.
Right, the trend, we'll go with the trend first, because I'm actually going to go against trend, but you know me, love seeing those trends. Again, brought it up. 2nd place is the ideal place to start here in the Sprint Championship. Be it in Sprint Challenge, be it in Sprint Masters, so far 2nd place has a 100% victory record, but you would be unwise to bet against that number 91. Mitchell de Jong behind the wheel this time. Josh Rogers did a fantastic job to put it on pole position with the experience and racecraft of Mitchell de Jong, then handing it over to Josh Rogers to end the race. That is the car that is going to do the business today.
It's Coanda locking out the front row. If you ask me, watch out for both Phil Denez and, Felix Kornbach in the BS competition car and Cooper Webster in the Logitech G-Altus car. Very quick in qualifying. Pace car is down onto pit road. There will hopefully be no starting shenanigans this time around. The field is in control of Mitchell de Jong as we work our way into the start zone, ignoring the iRacing green flag. We wait, and we are green flag racing in race number 2. Oh, there's already contact with the Lego Technic car and Urano and their Audi. Side by side for 3rd position is Cooper Webster, trying to hold off Felix Kronbach, but once more, I think 4th position with a rocket of a start. We fly our way down into turn 2. Oh, and there's more contact in the background. I think Pash Gergis in the Mercedes is off the track. 2x2 through turn 3 and 4. We work our way onto this back straightaway.
Yeah, certainly is Pash Gergis in the VRS Coanda 18, Core Sim Racing as well, with one of the Urano Esports, the HP car. So already drama. It was a really slow start from the 93, but because of that run through turn 1 and the carnage behind has allowed everyone else to get away. Vendaval looking to the inside of the Logitech G Altus Esports car, who are also trying to funnel their way through. Look at that from the Apex car that's absolutely sent it in that Lamborghini.
That was full send from Zach Campbell. The rest of the field safely through. Only Pash Gurgis has had to make his way back down onto pit road. He will be devastated after a very strong race 1 in the Mercedes. Kawanda trying to run away as Altus Esports has already gotten back past the BS competition BMW. There's more 2-wide action further back in the pack. This is just as hectic as race number 1, and hopefully it'll be just as clean as we saw. Urano to the inside as we fly our way down into the Mobile 1 corner, entering into the arena, and still Urano gets the position. It's Valkyrie almost down into 12th position.
Yeah, now Course Sim Racing can get involved in that Ferrari. Keep your eye on that Mercedes of inertia behind. Saw the issues that they had in race 1. Speaking of trends, making contact on the rear end of cars on the run down into the hairpin, but they've got to keep their eyes on their mirror, because the Lego Technic car and R8G's Audi are going side by side as they run through the subcurva to end the lap. It's close between them. We're single file ahead of this, but tight stuff, and just trying to find your way through cleanly. I think it was another start, with the exception of what happened down at turn 1, which has gone away fairly clean.
You say clean, but look at that. Bila defending, forces Urano in the Lamborghini to go very aggressive. That was a bit unwise, but I think now it just enables them to get swarmed by the Mercedes, first of Core, and then the Coanda car. Pure Sims and their Audi will get on through as well. Unfortunate for that Lamborghini and Lewis Najner, who's now on the edge of the top 20. The grunt of the Mercedes, though, that big V8 engine pulling it down. Oh, there's more contact between the Lamborghinis. That's the second of the Apex Racing cars. Side by side, there's a check up into the hairpin.
Valkyrie.
And it's Valkyrie around. That'll be heartbreak for them. And I wonder what exactly happened there.
Yeah, they were also collected a little bit by the R8G Audi coming through. Shame to see them after such a incredible march forward in race 1. Clearly tears already in race 2, but the race is not done yet. We'll see if they can work their way forward. They'd qualified much better, but they are round again in the arena section. Not sure what's happened to Valkyrie, but Nolan Lemeray not having a great start to the race.
Just wait to get the RaceSpotTV replays then on the start. It's been a hectic couple of laps, and the Coanda duo out front are trying to take advantage. More contact between the Lamborghinis. This time it's Bila getting spun around very briefly. They will hold on to that car, but they will drop to 20th position. It's been a crazy start. They're almost 3 wide into the penultimate quarter. Such an interesting start to this race. Boys, you've still got 55 minutes left to go.
Yeah, right. You wouldn't think that we're at the start of a 60-minute race. They are absolutely flying with the action, trying to find their positions right now. Absolutely insane. Let's take a look at what happened with Valkyrie. We're looking into the rearview mirror. So you've got the Lego Technic car making contact and then spinning out the Mercedes, and the BMW copping the main part of it and then getting a bit of contact as well. It did spin, but of Lemeray's own volition, coming down into the arena section. I think more so through a broken car than anything else.
I'll be honest, Lewis, I don't necessarily blame the Lego Technic car too much there, because he was committed to the inside. It was the inertia Mercedes that was kind of trying to cut him off into the braking zone. One of the rules of racing, don't move in the braking zone, and I don't think that Matti Kaidasoa really left too many options for Tommy Oscar. Take a look at the start here. It's 4 wide action, and that's always going to be a recipe for disaster. You can see the Urano car goes off into the grass. That really spins it around into Pash Gurgis. There's a separate incident with that Core Sim Racing car.
Yeah, I mean, I said it before. Turn 1 here at the Hockenheimring is hard. It is difficult by yourself. It is harder with other people, and it's such a narrow line. And when you're used to attacking it at high speed, you're used to attacking it off of the final corner. And I feel that there is no corner that is actually harder to approach from a race start than Turn 1, because it's just bizarre. Like, I can't even describe why it actually is as hard as it is. It's just such a narrow line. You go too far over to the right hand side, you hit that enormous sausage curb there. You go too far over to the left, you're going to get yourself a slowdown. You've got to run through this tiny narrow line that only a few can match lap and lap and lap.
So here's the Yanni Kiro incident. Oh, it's just the slightest bit of contact. I thought And maybe something separate there for the core sim racing car. Looks like broken right suspension. I think they will have to come down onto pit road at some point to get repairs. Valkyrie, Inertia, and Coanda, those are the 3 cars that have made their way down into the boxes. Side by side, they work for third. Quirnback down the inside, and Cooper Webster says, I won't fight you too hard now, because I know there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, and Toivonen, race winner in the previous one, is now directly behind. And we'll remember with them that Kova may well just run this a little bit more patient, keep in control of their tyres, keep in control of their car. It's, you know, a Porsche 1-2 and then the army of BMWs that are going to try and chase them down. But they're not, they may well be driving the same car. They're not driving the same team. There's no communication between them. They are all just driving for themselves. And it's whether they're going to trip over themselves, which might halt their charge to go and catch the VRS Coanda 1-2 that we presently have.
They're only, though, about a second clear of Quirnback, so still in the draft, and you don't like to really think about that if you are Philip Stam in the hot seat on strategy, because if those guys close up, it makes things difficult. Warren and De Jong are really not fighting, and I would even speculate as to maybe what De Jong is doing in terms of saving tires for the last half of the race, because of course, talk about the track temperature very briefly as the Zebra runs a little bit wide through turn number 1. We are at 41 degrees Celsius. It is a bit different from race 1, Lewis, and when you think about the tire saving that Kova did at the start of that first race, that will pay dividends at the second half of this race.
Yeah, if they can continue that, if it works in these kind of conditions. The thing is that tyre saving is an art form. It's not as simple as, well, if you just drive more in control and you don't lock up and don't do this, then the tyres will be all well and good. It's how you use them and how you work them, and you could be great at saving tyres when it's 31 degrees, but then when it's hotter, you may actually struggle a little bit more to save them, even in comparison to everyone else. And it's a juggling act that works for some and not for others. And then you also have to take into account setup. You have to take into account the car itself. You have to take into account how intense you're a part of the battling around you, which Kova this time a bit more in the thick of it. Whilst they're not necessarily battling, they are a part of this train that runs down to roughly 10th place with the core sim racing car.
Just reading in the YouTube chat from Tim Ryan, the 2018 iRacing World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint Car World Champion, Cooper Webster and Jordan Caruso, not necessarily the most experienced of GT competitors. Of course, Altus and their drivers do have a history of competing in the GT3 cars. Bo Albert won 24 Hours of Daytona with that team. I think it was in 2020. And of course, Tim Ryan himself, who can forget, part of the 2017 GT World Championship back in the day, when it used to be the GT3 cars on board with Vendaval Sim Racing in their Audi. Look at Dakota Fripp. Very calm, and I tell you what, talking through turn number 1, not always what I like to be doing. It is very difficult to be driving at 10/10ths, Lewis, and also be communicating with your team. That's also what makes these drivers so good. They said it about Michael Schumacher as well. He could almost turn one portion of his brain and dedicate it to the driving, and the second half of his brain focused on figuring out the best strategies.
Yeah, that's it. You know, the only person that understands better than anyone what is going on in the car is the driver themselves. And particularly with this rush that we've had in sim racing, we've always had engineers and stuff in sim racing, but it seems like every team these days has a proper race engineer, and the communication between them, a driver and team, is more critical now than ever, especially when you're dealing with a race that's as competitive and as hard fought as this. We'll say that Quirnback, by the way, in that BS competition car, has been able to break, not fully, but has been able to potentially break a little bit the charge of Logitech G Alpha Esports. And look at that, right on the back of VRS Coanda. There's about a second gap between them and the car behind, but nothing between them and potential charge forward even from now.
I must say, both Quirnback and Dennis were pretty rapid in race number 1. The only issue was a bit of contact, and of course what happened on the start that will probably drop them out of, I think it was 6th place that they finished at the checkered flag, maybe drop a couple of positions to the edge of the top 10. Left side of the screen, you can see the movers and shakers, and if I'm reading that correctly, Daniel Lafuente in the Williams Esports Razor car, 13 positions up, sniffing a top 10 finish here.
Yeah, that is sensational progress. Of course, a little bit more of a chaotic start in this than in the previous, but has dusted that off anyway and has gained through all of it. That is, to be honest, massively impressive. Whether that's going to end in something great, obviously we don't really know. It's far too early to tell. But closing even further, going to aim for plus even more than that, because now right on the rear end, just a little bit outside of it, but that braking zone maybe less so off the little back end of it. But as a part of this train, and that train leads all the way up to the race lead.
Side by side coming out of the hairpin, that's a Ferrari, I think, of Inex Racing, and in front of them it's Urano side by side with the core Mercedes, at least for just a moment. They are defending from the car behind. Well, that's Maxime Briant, the Frenchman, who has recently joined up with the Apex Racing team. Single file themselves, but I think side by side further back. Left side of the screen, I am following the gap between first and second. Mitchell de Jong is falling off the tail of his teammate and is really being harangued by Felix Kronbach right now.
Now, you get the vibe with this that they are going to potentially pull Mitchell de Jong into the pit lane at the very first call. Just to not, this is no disrespect to Mitchell de Jong. We know he's a talented driver. Maybe it comes down to preparation. Maybe it comes down to not matching this car very well, or whatever. Who knows? It's a hard track to drive, and I don't feel that Mitchell de Jong is matching to it quite as well as his teammate. There's been contact as well, and I think they've just been sent on the 91 by Kronbach just down into turn 2. That's where that switch of position has come. Now, does the BS competition car return it? All it's helping though is the 93 ahead.
It is 2.4 seconds and climbing, because that contact has really checked their momentum up down this back straightaway. It's brought back the BMWs of first Logitech G Altus Esports and Kova. You can see Arnage competition in their pink BMW, doing very well. Jimmy Antunes in 6th position. Watch for Ricardo Rico to maybe charge through the field in the second half of the race. So much strategy. We talked about it in race 1. You mentioned maybe they'll pull Mitchell de Jong in as early as possible, as there's side-by-side between VRS Coanda and RAG for 16th position. VRS is really having to fight hard for this. They're such a strong outfit, not just in iRacing, but across of simulators now as well, Lewis. It really is a top-level championship, though, when you have this level of competition.
Yeah, VRS Coanda SimSport have now spread out across, not just in iRacing, but elsewhere in sim racing. And you'd be easy to think, again, maybe they'll go there and they'll get themselves top 5s. They'll try and compete with the best and build us. No, they're winning again. Of course they are. Just an intense outfit that know exactly how to extract the most. They spend a lot of time on picking it apart. This is that move on the rear end. Oh, that is quite a move. Oh, that is nearly a proper send. Quite aware, though, with the Apex Racing Lamborghini, and basically allowed it to happen. The switch of position returning. Got to say, there was a bit of a dive as well from Dylan Scrivens to get by Zach Campbell. Speaking of Apex Racing and Lamborghinis, really, really good move from Bobo up into 8th place. Maybe not matching quite as well to the GT3s as other cars, but clearly not showing any signs of that right now.
Well, Dylan said that he has very minimal experience in GT3s. I can tell you for a fact that this is the first serious race that Zach Campbell has ever had to do in a GT3 car. So he's getting up to speed. A side-by-side for second. Kronbach is going to try and get around. We saw the Coanda Porsche was strong around the outside in race number 1, but de Jong unable to defend. It's BS competition in second, but 3 seconds behind Dane Warren.
Yeah, indeed. That's a large gap that we'll have to wait and see. I think they're side-by-side as well with Antunes and Fripp has a bit of a dive to the inside from the Van der Waal man. Might open the door as well for Dylan Scrivens to pick something up through all of this. They're still side-by-side. It's still going to be Arnage. The door is, though, open as running way wide is Fripp. Dylan Scrivens to the inside, potentially gaining another spot. And for Urano, this is looking a bit more like it.
This is the Urano that I kind of expected. They are German champions in the GT3. Kind of thought they'd show up a bit stronger in race 1. You can see Lafuente into the top 10 behind as well. What a day it's been for him in this race number 2. Can he continue that charge forward? Very much the most aggressive driver on the day so far. Now tucked up behind Zach Campbell in the 99. Would not be surprised to see the Porsche of Williams getting on past. Look on board with the World Championship driver. We come on through turn number 1. Gets a very nice run, and I think might even look to the inside into turn 2 here.
Yeah, Zach Campbell waiting potentially to be passed by this car that has been absolutely charging. I said before I don't like the green front end in it, and I'm going to stand by that. I don't mind the Williams esports livery, but the green front end is a little bit too much. But at least it's recognisable, at least it's noticeable. And when you see it in your rear view mirror, you think, oh God, here we go. And there's been a lot of progress made from this car. Lafuente's done an outstanding effort. And it's not done yet.
Oh!
It was, going for a bit of a spin. That'll be Fripp and a little bit of Campbell as well.
I think it was Campbell that probably made the contact with Fripp that sent around the Audi. We'll have to get the replay up when we can. I would say, though, we have the spec maps that have now been added to iRacing. Recently, you can start putting your own sponsors on the tires. I think the next thing that we need to see is RGB on the cars and their liveries. There you can see just the slightest bit of contact. Campbell just a little bit deep under the brakes. I don't think Fripp will be too thrilled with that one. Race Control will obviously take a look at it.
Yeah, and taking everything into account, there's going to be a little bit of a tricky one for them to pick apart. But either way, again, it's happened now. A bit of a shame for Fripp and for Van der Waal. But Lafuente, there we go. At 2, tick. Nice, another extra couple of positions. Dylan Scrivens wants to add yet another one to his name as well, was trying to apply pressure to Arnage, who was so impressive in that first race. I think now we should keep our eye on the gap. Well, I mean, we have been anyway for the race lead, but let's really make a note of it. It is 3 seconds right now between Quernbach and Warren. Is it going to go down? Is it going to go up? Is Mitchell de Jong going to continue to struggle for pace? And is he going to drop even further off? All questions that need to be answered in the next 42 minutes, or at least in the next sort of 15 or so, before they have to come down pit lane and make their pit stop.
Onboard look with Bobo as we come down in towards the Parabolica and the braking zone of the hairpin. De Jong is being dropped by the BS competition car. It was almost 0.8 of a second as here comes Urano down the inside of Arnage. Pink versus red. Great to see multicolored. You can see just how much steering lock that the Urano car needs. Not necessarily what you'd expect, but of course that's probably one of the few points on the track, Lewis, where you're actually going to go hand over hand to get that much lock into the wheel.
Yeah, I remember watching, I think it was Formula E at one of their circuits in the first round they used to run. I can't remember which one it was, whether it was Punta del Este or wherever, but there was a hairpin on it, and of course, you know, Formula E and tight hairpins, whatever. And going into it, and the amount of lock, even more than that, surprisingly enough, with hairpins and stuff, the fastest way round, you know, sometimes you do really have to send it on the steering wheel, and clearly, Dylan Scrivens not taking much of a care to his front left tyre and just thinking, no, it'll take it, it's fine. And quite clearly, it is up another spot, up into 6th place. Now has a decent 2-second gap to work with to try and work into a nice bit of clean air as well.
I do always love these onboard looks and trying to just poke at the driver's expression to try and understand what is underneath and what they're thinking about. Still calm for Antunes, but I would say he's a little bit more concerned than he was the last time around. He's in 7th. He does know that Ricardo Rico is ready to take over the car, only about 6 minutes away from the pit stop window. And I got the notification from Philip Stam in the VRS team house. He is expecting, Lewis, that given that the driver swap anyway takes 30 seconds, all these teams are taking 4 fresh tires to get them through the second half of the race. So that's going to mean that tire conservation isn't as important as keeping your car clean. Lafuente goes down the inside of 1. Can he get Scrivens as well?
Oh, that was tight. Massively out of control. Managed to guide it up. There's a little bit of emotion out of Antunes, saying that he was calm, basically like a, yeah, whatever. Now seeming a bit more angry, a bit more feisty, fancying to get back onto the rear end of the Porsche of the Williams Esports Razor car that is sat directly ahead. Is there going to be a return to calmness for him? The answer to that, I think, is a yes.
Just give him a few corners, just like when
exactly.
Just like when you overheat your tires by locking up, just give it a few corners and you get back to racing speed. While this is raging on, de Jong continues to drop from the back of Quernbach. It's now 1.3 seconds as it's under 3 seconds between the first and second place cars. De Jong is feeling the pressure, not just from Cooper Webster, but from Pekka Toivonen as well. It's not such an easy race for Kova, but watch out for Tattala in the second half of this race.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still gonna keep my eye on Kova. I don't think there's going to be a win. I'll say that now. I don't think it is going to be a win for Kova. but a podium. Well, that seems fairly likely. The only real issue is that Tattler's pace towards the end of the stint did seem to drop off more than anyone else, more into the region of what we're seeing from Mitchell de Jong here. So, yeah, I'm not so convinced. So I think they might keep Toivonen in the car for as long as possible. 2.8 seconds, around about 3 seconds. Quernbach's doing a brilliant job to try and close down on Dane Warren. But the gap is just holding around about that 3 second margin. It comes down a couple of tenths here, but then it goes up a couple of tenths there. So it does seem to just ebb and flow and always return to around about 3 seconds.
Quernbach has the fastest lap of the race at 38.634. The last time, though, Dane Warren with a 7.78 compared to Quernbach's 7.71. There are 7 thousandths of a second between these two cars. This is some of the top level, highest level of GT3 competition we've had on the iRacing service. I think very much due to not just $25,000 in prize money, but of course the re-emergence of GT3 as a major platform, not just here on the sim, but worldwide as well. For the last couple of years, it's been all about GTE. That's going to change with GT3 taking the forefront in IMSA competition. It's led to the arrival of 3 new GT3 cars. And I have to ask Lewis, and I'm going to ask everyone in the chat as well, if you're watching live on Virtual Racing School Twitch or the RaceSpotTV YouTube, if you had to pick one single GT3 car to add to the iRacing service, which one are you going for?
Ooh, you're going to have to come back to me on that. Oh, that's a very good question.
I tell you what, I'll let you answer while I go, because there's only one choice for me here. I need to see the Aston Martin, and Elliot of Improvised Design, who is providing all the photos for this series, has agreed with me as well. I would love the new Aston Martin. It is such a beautiful car. Would love to see how it drives as well.
Okay, I'm going to go, and this is it's more so from elsewhere, of course. I think the only really races in the ADAC GT Masters esports, but I do like the Callaway.
Ooh,
I like the Callaway.
That is a left field call, as you can see the light flashing from Dylan Shriver. Oh, there's been a mess at the hairpin. It's VRS Commander and the Mercedes that has gone off the track. You see some damage to the front of the core as side by side the Urano Lamborghini of Louis Najner is trying to hold off Jeremy Bouteloup, as in the background the Frenchman Maxime Briant tries to also defend from R8G in the Audi. This is so hectic. Of course, for points paying positions, not all of these drivers in the points though, because only the top 15 score points. If we take a look at Jeremy Bouteloup, he doesn't look too thrilled as to what's just happened.
I will say in chat, the NSX, that is a great call. Love that car. But either way, yeah, you're absolutely right that points are only for the top 15. If you've watched a lot of MotoGP and things like that, it is points from 25th, 20, 16, 13, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 41. There you go. Did it all. It's quite a tight bit. Pit window's not open.
And
right
you've just noticed the same thing that I have. The Lego Technic team is down onto pit road. Very interesting call. I wonder if there's some damage on that car.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It must be, because they are in a minute too early. Oh, it's a drive-through.
I wonder as to why. That is very quick from race control if they've given a drive-through penalty. Or maybe he realized that he miscalculated. There's two options here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're going to have to try and figure out as to what's happening. Look at this train of cars, though. Really is a trolley train behind the R8G Porsche. There goes Inex Racing to the outside line, trying to get the position done. And of course, this is for 17th on back, not points paying positions. They can see those points right in front of them. I think that Porsche will hold on. The Ferrari gets a little bit squirrely as he gets the power down. Single file, they go once more. Arnage Competition and Core Sim Racing swapping around for 8th and 9th positions as they come in through turn 8 by themselves. Incredible action up and down through the field. This series is really delivering right off the back.
Yeah, I mean, if we get anything quite close to the race ending, the victory rather, move from Kova, get more stuff like that throughout this race, then we are sorted. It is 3 seconds between BS Competition and VRS Commander, and at the moment things are looking good, but with the pit stop sequence looming on the horizon, 35 minutes is about to be put onto the clock. And what does that mean? Pit window is now open and drivers can come in, but the leaders and all that lot, they've already gone round. They've already started the next lap.
Oh, that's a late call from Jack Cedric to come down onto the lane. He almost turns himself on the pure sim racing Audi. Oh, that was close. Pure Sim's out. Excuse me there. Getting myself confused with old teams. Pit window well and truly open. It is a very, very busy pit lane. Everyone deciding this is the time to change their drivers. 4 fresh tires coming onto their cars. As Simon Feigl points out, it is a pit party. Jack Sedgwick gets out. Be handing that car over to Yaltian.
Yeah, really, really impressive to have made that call that late, seeing that the pit window was open from race control and backing it down pit lane. It's I'm going to be honest here. It's a pretty rubbish pit lane entry. It's not the worst. It is not the worst. There are much worse ones in the world, including on the calendar actually, because we do go to Austria, which has one of the worst pit lane entries in the world. But it's an awkward pit lane entry that does cause issues. Right there was very, very close to tears. So yeah, not ideal, but. I mean, it was tight. It was so tight.
The top 16 yet to come down pit road. The gap out front is held fairly constant. Dane Warren able to not let the pressure from behind get to him. He's 3 seconds clear as Lafuente is now going to drop the position to Scrivens. These guys have been really enjoying a fun fight between themselves. Who's down onto pit road this time around? Neither of them. So they're going to stay out there and extend their first stint. Their teammates will be waiting in the wings to try and take on the car. The 91 is down, so Mitchell de Jong will hand over to Josh Rogers. Logitech Gioltas are down, as well as Kova. Let's see how things are going to go in pit road.
Surprised Kova is in. I thought they were going to leave Toivonen in for a little bit longer. Not surprised to see VRS SCO 91 in to hand the reins over to Josh Rogers. We were, had said before about that car that no disrespect to Mitchell de Jong, but clearly not at one with this racetrack. And this is, as much as the pit lane has been open for a little while now, this is their first opportunity. They were past the pit lane when it opened this lap. Josh Rogers then getting in behind the wheel and will set off and try and chase down teammates and race leaders in the 93. Charlie Collins will be behind the wheel of that one, taking over from Dane Warren when it comes down pit lane.
Rogers had a mighty charge at the start of race 1. It is side by side of the exit of pit road, and Altus Esports are going to have to defend from Kova and Thomas Tattler.
Whoa.
There's almost contact there. That was very, very close. They got exceptionally lucky to have not been spun around like we saw on the back straightaway at the middle of race number 1. Lights flashing from Tattler. Don't think he's too impressed with how things went there. I would say, I think Mitchell de Jong would probably be a little bit more comfortable if we were racing around the Hockenheim rallycross layout, which unfortunately we don't have here on the iRacing service. Here comes the move from Kova as Tattler is going to get on past. I believe now into that car is Jordan Caruso. So there goes the swap around as into pit road comes your race leader, Dane Warren. Felix Kronbach, though, inherits the race lead as he extends this first stint.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been impressed if I was in that Kova car because, it's obviously common knowledge in iRacing that in the fast seconds contact, but in the, as far as I'm aware anyway, even around here, obviously in the NASCAR circuits it certainly is, but through the pit stalls and stuff, there's no contact in the pit lane. And if you're still inside another car when you depart pit lane, that non-contact kind of, it's a bubble that kind of continues until you're outside of each other, right? Now, the problem with that is they left being inside each other and then came back across. So for Caruso to come back across, that could have ended very, very badly indeed. I would not have been impressed because that was the race disappearing right there and then.
Collins rolls himself onto track. Where is the cars behind? Rogers across the start-finish line. It is upwards of 5 seconds the gap. Rogers has a mighty task on his hand, but let's be honest here. If there's anyone that you want at the wheel right now with 5 seconds to close, it is the iRacing Porsche Tag Heuer Esports World Champion.
It's a big gap. We won't lie. That is an enormous gap between the two. But like you say, Josh Rogers is the man to do it, is the man to try and close that down. But based on race 1, Charlie Collins, and obviously elsewhere in sim racing, and the amount of times that we've seen him in iRacing, but still, Charlie Collins, despite being younger, but despite being a bit more inexperienced, absolutely has the pace. And 30 minutes to go. It's a big gap. You have to think of it. You calculate the amount of laps and then think, okay, if it's a 10th here, it's a 10th there, it's a 10th here, it's a 10th there. And also, Josh has a lot of pressure from behind. May not be that bad. And BS Competition are still likely to come out ahead of the 91, so has to get by that as well.
Let's see what the lap times are from Rogers. The next time will be the first indication that we get. Kernbach almost matching his fastest time. His fastest is a 38.634. Still out there on track and continuing as we cross the halfway point. A 38.655 the last time around. That is consistency, and that is why we're up here in the comms booth, they're down there driving to the edge of the limit. For Rogers then across the line, let's see what that lap time is going to be in comparison to your race leader, because of course that is going to be a very close battle on the pit exit. For Rogers, it's a 38.670. He's right onto the pace, Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt this is what separates these drivers from being good to being great, is the ability to jump in the car and instantly, with no warm-up, be straight onto the race limit. So our Nash competition have lost out a fair amount there as they're going side-by-side with the core sim racing Ferrari that Janssen's just taken over. They're still going to be side-by-side through turn 3, or turn 4 rather, onto the Parabolica. Which is turn 5, and they're still going to be side-by-side down into the heavy braking zone. I'm going to favour the Ferrari here.
Ferrari, though, doesn't necessarily have its tires up to temperature, as here comes Kernbach to hand that car over to Denez. The speed of the Ferrari is, I think, what has gained it that position. He will hold off the BMW. There is that look at Kernbach. Focus on his face, but job is done for him now, Lewis. He can watch on for the next 28 minutes.
This is why I'd almost want to be in this. I'd want to start race 2. So the moment that you've pulled into your box here, the moment that you've hit escape, and day's done. Weight is off the shoulders. You've done what you can, and to be fair, done a very, very solid race. It's now about having a breather, go and get yourself some water, and let your teammate do the work. You know, that's where it's just a bit like you can finally, after 2 intense hours, you can finally breathe.
So it does leave 5 cars still out there on track, yet to come down pit road. Williams Esports Razor, Urano Esports Huawei, and Apex Racing Team in the 99, where Zach Campbell is behind the wheel. Here, though, is the race off of pit road. Charlie Collins is flying through turn number 1. Phil Denez is looking in his rearview mirrors. Where is Joshua Rogers in comparison? Denez is clear. Rogers is pressured from behind.
Yeah, he's that's. I mean, I was kind of expecting the BS competition to be ahead of Josh Rogers, and that's exactly what we're seeing. But you were saying that Josh Rogers is up to pace, is right there challenging on speed, but realistically, like I say, I think the gap's just too big and has the pressure from behind. And now, like we're saying, has to also get by, and that's the difficult thing. Has to catch the BS competition, get by that, and then start closing down on the teammate ahead. I'm not sure I see this one happening.
The gap, by the way, between the 93 and the 89 is basically the same as when they came down onto pit road. It's just over 3 seconds. Those guys are trading lap times back and forth. Rogers, by the way, the last time around, a 38.465, it didn't count as a valid lap time, so he is pushing the track limits here. It's going to be interesting, Lewis, because you're not allowed to take more than 20 X's. Of course, the incident system in iRacing not in full effect here, where it's going to affect your safety rating. But once you cross that 20 incident threshold, you get a 5-second time penalty. So for Rogers, he does need to be careful with 25 minutes still left to go.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, if you've watched IndyCar with Scott Dixon, or watched British Touring Cars even with Colin Turkington, the drivers that consistently win championships, that are always there or thereabouts, it's not just about the speed, it's about the, do you know what, I'm in 3rd spot, I want more, I'll try and get more, but if I can't get more, then, fair enough, I'll take the podium, I'll take it on the chin, we'll come back next round and we'll be as competitive. It's about understanding the results and understanding what is possible, and constantly delivering with that level of consistency. And that's what Josh Rogers does. That's what Mitchell de Jong does, and it's what the two coming together normally does. But we did see a couple of chinks in the armour to open the season. These are questions which they will answer, that they will work on heading to the next round at Barcelona in a week's time.
Look at this. Rogers defends hard to the inside, forces Tattler to try and sweep around the outside. But I think Tattler tried to turn in a bit too early, checks himself up, and Rogers will hold on, but drag race down into turn 8. You can see the lights flashing. I don't think Tattler necessarily appreciated that. Now on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see the mix of teams that we have here in the top 10. Around the outside, can the BMW make this stick? It will give him the inside for the next portion of the corner. Look at the view that Jordan Caruso has from behind. Rogers able to hold on.
Yeah, was trying to channel his teammate Toivonen and make that one around the outside of the arena section, diving it into Mobile 1, but no way to make that one stick. Caruso, who made a lot of moves in the opening stages of the first race of the night, is and now sat there waiting, and we'll see his opportunity come and go. I'm sure there will be one or two for the Logitech G Altus Esports driver. They are way ahead of the Williams Esports Razor car, who, by the way, they're in 6th spot, which is incredible for them at the moment. That is post pit stop, post everything. I'm genuinely speechless.
Well, that's after starting down in 24th position. Led the race for a moment through the pit stop cycle. What a day it's been. Up 18, as you can see. They will be thrilled, and they'll look to carry this momentum forward after a bit more of a tough race one. Just 7 days' time, we will head to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya for rounds 3 and 4. That should be very interesting, but all eyes now on the next 23 minutes. BS Competition did not take tires, I am being told, so watch if they drop down like we saw the Arnage competition team do in race number 1, where apparently they did that very same strategy. This, though, is going to help Phil Denez in holding on to that second position, still around the outside. Tattler tries to make it stick. He will force himself to the inside. To the outside he will go to turn 7.
Yeah, this is going to be big around the arena section. Needs to do it, and to do it on one of the very best. We've seen this one happen a couple of times between these two. Around the outside of Josh Rogers, now given the inside. Josh Rogers going for the undercut and pass back up the inside. It's defended really, really nicely from Thomas Tattler. Riding on board with Jordan Caruso into Mobile 1. Kova gaining the position and then running wide. Oh, how many times have we seen that? Using the car ahead as a brake marker, basically constantly. You finally get into some clean air. First thing you do, run wide.
Well, I actually think coming through turn 10, the right-hander onto that short straightaway before the arena section, I think Tattler did something very smart, learning from what he saw the Coanda car do in race number 1. He parked the car just a little bit earlier than Rogers expected. Rogers was going for the over-under, left no room for the Australian to slip on by. Rogers demoted to 4th.
Yeah, that was not the direction I was expecting him to go, and you can see there the disappointment. Once again, just not really enjoying things right now around the circuit. You can tell, even just from there, from this is why it's beautiful to see into the camera, into the eyes, the face of the drivers, that we understand the emotion. And while some drivers are quite good at hiding it, clearly, Josh, you can really get that vibe that there is frustration in the room right now.
And I definitely think he's a driver that is mature, not just, since starting as a very young kid in sim racing. He's now obviously not a kid anymore. Maybe when you think about him in comparison to some of the elder statesmen of sim racing. But part of the Coanda house now, he's been there for a couple of years, had an adjustment period, I'm sure, to moving away from his family a long, long way away across the other side of the globe, has now found a place that he can call home, and indeed a family around him in the Coanda team. I'm sure they'll have a nice celebration regardless of the result come the end of this day, because for Coanda there's always something to celebrate given the number of things they are taking part in. Denez is 2.7 seconds clear of this group of cars for third on back, and I tell you what, if he really is on these older tires, he is doing a smashing job right now, Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. The harder they battle, the bigger that gap's going to get. Also, just behind this, did notice that Labish did get by Kalpanen and up into 6th position, so it's -1 now to the Williams Esports Razor car as Urano Esports gain 1. Still about 3 seconds off the rear end of this train for the podium, but you never really know. Especially if Phil Denez does drop off on pace. But for BS Competition, it's a 3-second gap, 20 minutes. That's not bad. I don't see anyone catching the 93 right now. I think Collins and Warren are looking pretty safe, which I will say does continue the trend, by the way. 2nd place translating to a race victory. It's 100% so far. And where did that car start? 2nd place.
Maybe Josh Rogers needs to learn to go a bit slower in qualifying.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that we're seeing here. I will say, for 4 out of 4, if it ends up this way, that is a trend that, when we head to Barcelona, will be interesting to see if it carries on. Just 7 days from now till the next race, Lewis. It is a very compressed time frame for these drivers to prepare. But I think the good news is a lot of them are familiar with the GT3 car now, especially the one that they've picked. It will mean that the preparations just go a little bit more smoothly and they can focus on nailing the lines.
Yeah, Barcelona, in a sense, from a track map, it's not the most complex circuit in the world. There's a couple of nice medium-speed corners, which will play into the hands of different cars, by the way. It is a wildly different venue to here at Hockenheim, where we were talking it earlier. It's a lot of brake, turn, and then squirt the throttle. Brake, turn, squirt the throttle. There's not much medium-speed corners. Where you think of Barcelona, it's all medium-speed corners, with the exception of a couple sort of slower. So we don't do the chicane, as you were saying. We're running around the fast final couple of corners. I think we're going to see a different group of drivers and teams attacking the front. Obviously, we're going to see VRS SCO and SimSport up there and that kind of stuff. You kind of guarantee that. But for everyone else, it's more of an open door. That's why it's beautiful to go to a completely different circuit.
Well, and BOP is going to switch around as well. So while we're watching 2 Lamborghinis scrapping it out right now, they have been nerfed, if you ask some of the drivers. They're struggling a bit in straight line performance and low speed corners, which is basically the entirety of the 4.5 kilometers here, as opposed to some of these other cars. Carl Janssen, though, in the Ferrari, the highest placed of them, trying to defend from Ricardo Rico, but nothing doing there. Rico gets up into 8th position, looks forward to the gap. 2.5 seconds between him and the Williams car in front.
See if there's going to be a move here between core sim racing of Janssen and Rico in that Arnage car. And like I said, that Arnage car was brilliant in the opening stages of race 1 in the hands of this driver. Ricardo Rico made an incredible amount of progress and really threw Arnage competition on the map. And now to see them running in 8th position, it's almost not a surprise. Like, oh, well, there you go. That's why they did it in race 1. They can do it in race 2. They're doing really, really well, though. Must give them credit. There's 18 minutes left on the clock. Eyes are very much on the mirror. Not necessarily just of Janssen behind, but I do believe that Jamie Fluke is closing in that Apex Racing Lamborghini as well. Eyes maybe not so much forward to the rear end of Kalpanen's Williams Esports Razor car, who since being passed by Urano Esports has not been able to mount any sort of challenge in return.
Just a reminder that VRS and LEGO are giving away a LEGO Technic Porsche 911 RSR, as well as a VRS Direct Force Pro at the end of the season. 6 of those Porsche 911s to be given out for each race weekend. You can visit giveaway.sportscaropen.com to learn more and to enter yourself, not just for this week's giveaway, but for the season-long giveaway as well. What a wonderful prize that is. And I'm talking specifically about that Porsche 911 RSR, the Direct Force Pros. Pretty cool if you ask me as well, but I'm really looking forward to this, Lewis. Hopefully you don't get your model a bit earlier than me, because that might get you off onto the races a little bit earlier. We are going to show these off in person when we get them and build them. It's going to be a fun process, not just for those who win these 6 model kits, but for us as well.
Are you lightly asking me to wait?
Yes, please.
Okay. We'll see. Maybe I can just pretend. Ooh.
Well, Lewis is going to, I think, show up next week with his completed kit, and I'll be saying, mine's still in the mail somewhere, or maybe it'll be stuck in customs. On board with Caruso, you can see Rogers has actually fallen off the tail of Tattler. Interesting that the pace has kind of turned around at this point in time. We might have expected De Jong and Rogers to be 2 of the strongest drivers over the course of the season. A difficult round 1, but it is a very long season for them still to go. Yeah,
still 10 races after this, and you kind of think drivers of that caliber, they don't have off days very often, but it does seem like this is one of them. Now Jordan Caruso on the rear end of Rogers might be committing to a move down at turn 2. He's going to send it for Logitech G out for Esports. A little bit of a rub on the rear end as Rogers was trying to go for the cutback down to the inside, but now it is advantage to the BMW. Josh Rogers dropping backwards in the 91. I did not call that. I said they need to get Rogers in the car to start attacking them, to start making progress. Clearly not.
Well, and Iku Merakala, who is part of the Kova Esports outfit, has just let me know in the VRS Twitch chat that apparently Coanda only took 2 tires, whereas Kova took 4. And of course, we mentioned VS Competition not taking any fresh rubber for the second half of the race. So it'll be interesting to see just how aggressive Tattler is able to get in closing to the back of Denez and then to get the move done. But I would expect Caruso to now look forward and try and reel in the BMW in front.
Yeah, it could be a three-way fight for second place. I still maintain that Collins is a little bit too far down the road, although even 15 minutes is enough time to close that one down. Just a bit of a note on Rogers, by the way, in that 91 car. Like you say, you carry on with the strategy and stuff, and maybe they've made a couple of mistakes. Maybe it's been a couple of gambles to try and give them some progress. They were 9th in race 1 and 5th in race 2. Tell me of events where names like Josh Rogers and Mitchell de Jong have finished 9th and 5th. They are not going to be happy, especially when you compare them to the 93 car that was 2nd in race 1 and is currently leading and looking pretty good as well. Same machinery, same everything. You kind of have those ones where I'm sure they've got a list of reasons as to why this is happening. I'm not even going to call them excuses. Understanding as to why. That's what makes these teams so great, is it's the ability for them to bounce back. Pretty sure as riding on board with Ferguson that was Jarl Tien ahead, and that was a cut at turn 1. I think that might give a bit of a slow down penalty to the Norwegian driver.
We'll wait and see. I will say, by the way, you talk about consistency from drivers. I'm looking at 2021 and the Porsche Tagore Esports Super Cup results for a certain Joshua K. Rogers. First, 23rd, first, second, first, second, first, 7th, 26th, 13th, third, first, fourth, and first. Talk about consistency. That's not just being consistent, that's being consistently at the top of every single race you're in.
He's quite good, that kid. Although it's clearly showing that this is much stronger than even that. It is an intensely strong grid, but yeah, I mean, like I've said before, there are not many times that I am puzzled this much in the commentary booth as to where the pace has gone. Although, that's being harsh. They're still in the top 5. They're still not that far off realistically. So I guess it's not actually as bad as we're making. And we're supposed to be dramatic in the commentary booth here, right? We're supposed to be over the top and making it seem as if this is the worst thing that's ever happened. Look, 9th and 5th. It's not at least it's points on the board. It's not the worst way to start off the championship. They're still scoring some decent points. I believe it's 7 points, 11 if I remember correctly, something in that vein, from 9th and the 5th place spot that they're currently running in. It could be worse, much, much worse. They could be on 0.
And at the end of the day, it's a long season, and you never know. It might not be the 91 to watch out for here. Maybe full focus on this championship from the 93 of Collins and Warren. Gap for second is coming down. It's under a second as Tattler with a 4 fresh tires is reeling in Denez and the Zebra of the 89. Watch out for that. We're also looking at Kevin Ellis Jr., who is behind the Vendaval Sim Racing car. Of course, Vendaval mixed up with the other of the Apex Racing Lamborghinis. Zach Campbell making the slightest of contact with Dakota Fripp in the first stint of the race has enabled Jamie Fruit to be in the top 10. And right now, it's the Vendaval car looking in its rearview mirror.
Yeah, with if Tattler, by the way, that's a bit of almost a sudden there. If Tattler gets up into second spot, it means that in the championship, I know it's not speaking of the actual championship contention right now, but considering Kova won race 1 and a second here, and of course the 93 being second in race 1 and then first here, there's only going to be 1 point between them, and that is the point for pole.
Well. I will say, we're only 2 races into this 12-race calendar, and I'm already loving life here in the commentary booth. I cannot wait, not just for next week when we head to the circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya, but I'm already looking forward to the final race before we have a little bit of a break at the circuit Zolder. That is going to be super fascinating. Kind of a similar track to this, Lewis, where it is difficult to pass. You've got a few different opportunities where you can get stuff done, but you do have the addition of a few high-speed corners.
It's an exceptionally difficult track to pass out, one that some drivers really, really like. You've got to know how to abuse the curves for the chicanes at Zolder. It's what makes the calendar so great that we've got massively different circuits. Of course, we do 2 rounds here in Germany, of course, here today at Hockenheim, and then, of course, ending the season at the Nürburgring, which is his own different kettle of fish. Next round, of course, we're off to Barcelona. We've got Zolder in there as well, like you're saying. You've got Austria as a bit of a dive to the inside from Kevin Ellis Jr. and making that position stick on the Vendaval. The final track, by the way, that I've not mentioned is Monza, which, again, wildly different. It's what makes this so great and such an eye-catching piece. But something to eye-catch right now, 4 tenths separating Tattler and Phil Denez.
So Daniel Pastor getting past the Vendaval car, down into the hairpin, taking advantage of the move from Kevin Ellis Jr. So 2 positions lost in 1 corner for the 9. Have a bit more time to maybe fight that one back. The gap is really coming down. Denez has done a wonderful job to hold relatively close to Collins. It's only about a second at his most that he has fallen off the pace of Charlie Collins. And Thomas Tatzler, 4 seconds with 9 minutes left on the clock. I think it's a little bit too little too late, but if you can get past Denez fairly quickly, never say never here in this championship.
Absolutely not. Why would you? It's incredibly close between them, riding on board with Core Sim Racing in that in the Mercedes one. They've got a couple of different ones, including that Ferrari that we've seen a few times inside the points, but not by much. It'd just be a couple for this position, but every position gained is an extra point, so a bit of bonus for that. 9 minutes left on the clock. Tattler's pace has been better than our race leaders. I just don't think it's going to be enough from there. But I think for the chance to get the runner-up spot, Denez is waiting for that one to happen, and there is the dive.
Don't even think he fought that one as hard as he could have. He saw the car coming, gave him space, did not try the over-under, so it is now the finish outfit back into 2nd position. 8 minutes to go. It's going to be hard for them to reel in the gap. For Denez, I think the question that he's really going to be asking himself, how much life does he have in his tires to defend from Caruso from behind?
I think there's a podium here for BS competition. I'll be optimistic in that. I think that the amount that Denez has done, I know obviously taking out a lot of life from the tyres, but the amount that they've done to hang on to the spot for now has been very, very good. The pace is looking good, it's looking strong, it's looking decent comparatively to what's been going on. And there is a 1 and a bit second gap, not quite in proper slipstream range at the moment is Caruso. Of course, that'll change each time they go through the corners, and when you're in that room, it does close down quite dramatically. But Denez is doing, for me, just about enough right now, and I think we'll put up a harder fight to Caruso than did to Tattler.
Denez has a lot of sim experience in addition to his real-world endeavors. He is a 2-time Road to Indy iRacing E-Series champion. So both in 2020 when the Road to Indy ran those virtual races here on the iRacing service. I did mention his experience in a Mercedes AMG GT3 car. That dates back to 2018. Not just 1 race, but 2 races where he did get a podium in class. At the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, where we will head in just 7 days' time. He also has had the experience of driving in the 24 Hours GT Series back in 2018. That time, it was in a Porsche 911 Cup car, so a little bit different than what we saw, what we've been seeing, here today. I see the Altus guys in both our YouTube and Twitch chats. They're feeling confident about their chances of closing on Denez and getting on by.
Good for them. No, I just think it's enough. I just think, look at the gap. Look at how much has come down this lap. Does that come across to you as enough? 1.3, 1.4 seconds. I mean, Denez actually pulled out a little bit from Caruso. Obviously, at the moment, he has the advantage of using the slipstream of Tattler as well. And the moment that Tattler pulls away that little bit too much, that disappears. And once Caruso's in the boundary, again, that gap will disappear. And there's still quite a few laps. Any tiny mistake from Denez and Caruso will pounce. And again, Caruso knows how to make a move. We saw it in race 1, but I think it might just be a little bit too much. Whoa, that's a send.
That's a send, and that's a defense from, I believe, the Biela Racing Team car of Luca Kida. Eduardo Borghet saying, I don't care how much you want to defend, I want 19th position from you. And the Ferrari slips on past the Lamborghini. Last time around, it was a 0.5 of a second that Phil Denez was faster than Caruso. This time, Caruso was 1/100th of a second quicker. They are trading the lap times back and forth. I have a feeling Caruso knows that with 5 minutes left to go, this is, as Lewis Hamilton would call it, hammer time.
About perfection, about nailing it, about hitting every apex at the fastest possible speed and driving it to the limit of the car. But, you know, as is crucial at the point, you've got to find that limit and not overdo it, because, you know, if you're driving on the cusp, you're gaining a couple of tenths here and a bit there, but you know that if you make one tiny little mistake, you lock up a tyre, you run a little bit wide, you just overdo it into the hairpin, you're a little bit too late on the brakes, it costs you tenths, and it's so easy to lose time. It's much easier to lose time than it is to gain it, and I'm sure Caruso is very much aware of that, although seems to be hammering down. I'm just looking at it from just with the eye rather than actually looking at the times between them. I do get the vibe that this time it has come down around about 2 tenths, and Caruso is closing in the Logitech G Altus Esports car, so we'll have to see. 4.5 minutes left on the clock. By my money, that is 3 more laps for Charlie Collinson, the 93, to complete, and 3 more laps for Caruso to try and get by Benes.
And interestingly, half a second quicker was Kova and Thomas Tattala. It might be too late, but that gap is 2.8 seconds and shrinking rapidly. The 93 car is by itself for now, but do not think this is over by any means. Not just for first, for third as well. Dinez versus Caruso, that's one to watch out for. I saw Kieran Harrison, the Core Sim Racing newcomer, making his debut for them here today. He's gotten past that Vendaval Audi, relegated them down to 14th position. Quinton Violate, the R8G Junior, the last of the point scorer after a top 5 finish for them in race number 1. Not so easy here in race number 2, and that is going to be the story of the championship. Race 1, race 2, for every single round, it's going to be so different. Take a look at the manufacturers, Lewis. The Ferraris have been a little bit stronger here with Core Sim Racing in the 32. The Mercedes has been very much struggling in the harder track conditions.
Yeah, which is kind of what I wouldn't have expected to see, but it shows how different. This is why we run 2 races, and you can't just assume that the form book of race 1 is going to be the form book of race 2, because that isn't the case. We are seeing 2 wildly different races. It just so happens that it's the same top 2, just this time reversed, but everywhere else it's so wildly different. I mean, BS Competition in race 1, where did they end up? They were, I think they were in a decent spot, but it was 6th place.
Dinez lost the rear end through the penultimate corner. That gap down to 0.3 of a second. I've been informed that Jordan Caruso is not a fan of Lewis Hamilton. In fact, he's a fan of Charles Leclerc. So I don't know what Leclerc does when he goes fast, but whatever he's doing, he's ratcheting up the intensity. I think the move's coming down into the hairpin.
So you basically just insulted him.
I know, and I'm feeling quite bad about that. And Bo Albert, of course, had to just point that out. There is the sideways moment for Dinez. Very, very quick hands. But now opens the door, is down the back straightaway. Here comes the draft, and here comes that grunt from that BMW. Yeah,
I'm not quite sure. This is BMW versus BMW. I'm not quite sure it's going to be close enough for Caruso to send it, and certainly is going to wait there. But basically what you've done there is akin to telling Shane Van Gisbergen that, yeah, you should just drive a bit more like Scott McLaughlin, because he's, great move.
Oh, yeah. No, I know.
It's rough, isn't it?
I'm quite sheepish right now, but we'll move past it. 2 minutes left to go on the clock. 2.4 seconds is the gap out front. Collins is good. It will be white flag in the air the next time around. Caruso then, one more lap, one final opportunity to get that podium position here.
Yeah, the battle for the race lead, I think, is sorted. I think it's going to remain 2.5 seconds, maybe come down a bit close to 2 seconds. It's quite clear that the Kova is faster in the latter point of the race. It's just that gap was way too big to do anything about, and also had to get by the BS Competition car, which, albeit wasn't the hardest move known to mankind. It wasn't fought too hard for BS Competition, but I said they'd fight harder for this spot. It is for the podium. It is for a decent amount of points, 16 plays 13, so a decent 3-point buffer between these 2 positions, and of course the chance to be on the podium in the opening round of the season. Caruso knows it as well and is desperate to make a move. It's close through T1.
White flag in the air. This is the final lap. Caruso is talking on the radio. What is he being told? What is the team instructing him? Here we come. through turn 2. This is crucial. If Dinez can get the power down nicely, he might be able to defend. It's not nice enough. He uses all of the track, but Caruso is in the draft. Caruso is on the power. One final opportunity for the Logitech Gioltas esports team to get this podium away from the Zebra. Here comes the move to the inside. Dinez covers it off nice and early, forces Caruso to look to the outside line as they go side by side, over under coming from the 43. Can he get the power down here, Lewis?
No, he cannot, and it was that move. We've seen it so many times into the arena section. It is kind of the more optimal location to make a move around the outside here. I mean, Caruso might give it a go, but I get the vibe that it is sorted. Now it's going to take an enormous send either into Mobile 1 or a Sax Curve, but BS Competition have done a fantastic job here just to hang on, just to try and keep these tyres alive. Looking into Mobile 1, no way through for now.
And after the chaos on the start for Dinez, he has turned it around, not let that get to him. Through Sax Curve, he holds on. He should be good. A single file they go. Out, though, of the penultimate corner, it is Charlie Collins for the VRS Coanda team, second in race 1. They qualified in second. That streak continues. You can see just how happy he is. Charlie Collins takes the checkered flag in round 2 of the SCO Sprint Masters Championship. Tatala in second. Dinez holding on to third. Caruso settles for fourth, with Josh Rogers rounding out the top 5. What a fascinating race once more, Lewis. I cannot wait till 7 days' time when we get to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya.
Yeah, got more of this to answer, that is for sure. Consider it Barcelona. Don't get me wrong, the run through turn 5 at the Parabolica is great and all. We've got that long run, but imagine it when you come through, you're sat on the rear end, you come through the penultimate corner, down through the final corner, and you've got that huge run down to turn 1 at Barcelona. If we thought we saw some good racing here, Barcelona should actually, at least in these cars, deliver a fairly interesting one itself. Race 1 was all about Kova. Race 2 is all about Coanda.
And team boss Simon Feigl for the Altus guys just letting us know that that incident limit that I mentioned, Lewis, they were running up close to that. They didn't want to risk that 4th place position.
Yeah, smart move. I mean, why bother? Why push it to its limit? Again, that's heads-up driving. That's about playing the game and playing the cards. Is that if there is a move to be had, give it a go if it's there on a plate. But until that point, it's not worth the risk. Just let things unfold, let things happen the way they were. 4th place is still a great result for them. Like I said, they did well in the early stages of race 1, but unfortunately it just fell apart for them. Ended up in 28th spot. This one much better.
Let's go take a look then at these race results. Charlie Collins 2 seconds clear of Tuomas Tatala, who was coming on strong, but 2 tires prevails over 4. BS Competition, the Zebra, completes the podium. A much better race than race 1 for them. Wonderful drive from Dinez on the older tires to hold off Caruso for the Logitech Gioltas esports crew. Joshua Rogers, Mitchell de Jong for VRS Coanda. They round out the top 5 with a 5-second gap back then to Urano Esports and the Huawei crew. Williams Esports Razor, what a charge for them. 17 positions gained. They once led this race after qualifying down in 24th position. First it was Lafuente charging through the field before Kapanen finished things off. Arnage Competition, what a debut weekend for them. After a very strong race 1, they get 8th position here in race 2. Jamie Fluke for the Apex Racing team, they'll be happy with the 9th position, but they'll be looking to build for the next couple of rounds. Carl Jansen in the Ferrari rounds out the top 10, with 11th place going to the second of the Apex cars, Kevin Ellis Jr. in the 98. Urano Esports, they're in 12th with Core Sim Racing and debutant Kieran Harrison finishing in 13th. Vendaval RHG rounding out the points-paying positions with Martin Kroenke just missing out in the Mercedes for VRS Coanda. Jarl Tien in the Ferrari, it was a interesting race 1 for him. Contact made down that back straightaway. Recovers in race 2 to 17th position alongside Pearson's Esports. A drag race to the line. Just 2/10 between those 2 cars. Energy Sim Sport Core Sim Racing, they round out the top 20 with the Bila Racing Team Euronics car in 21st. The Lego Technic car in 22nd. Contact right off the bat for them. Disappointment for Tommy Osgaard and Mac Backham. Energy Sim Sport RHG Urano, with Valkyrie, Inertia, and VRS bringing up the tail end of this field. 28 cars taking to the green flag. Only, unfortunately, 23 making it to the end of the race. Alexander Walters with some technical issues that stopped him from getting to the checkered flag. As you can see, Barney the flagman waving it for the Welshman Charlie Collins. It's always great, Lewis. You saw just how happy the young Welshman was. There'll be one to watch him and his teammate Dane Warren through the next 10 races.
Yeah, I mean, look, we came into this season expecting it to be a bit of a VRS SCO and a SimSport show, but more so in the hands of the 91 than the 93. This time, though, it has been those drivers, Charlie Collins and Dane Warren, making their mark on this championship and showing that it is not just about Mitchell de Jong and Josh Rogers. They have incredible speed and incredible intensity, and like I say, a brilliant show between them.
And we're trying to then dial up some of these drivers and get them in for interviews. But before we get there, Lewis, let's just talk briefly about tire strategy, because right off the top, we had kind of indicated that maybe we'd only be seeing no tires being taken, but really there was all sorts of strategy. Several cars trying the no tire strategy, the Commander team trying the 2-tire strategy, and then ultimately Kova, they showed that 4 tires can bring you to the end.
Yeah, I'm surprised we saw that level of difference between them. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm sat here, obviously up here in the comedy booth where it's nice and warm and cozy, going, well, I mean, surely it's not that hard strategically. It's only an hour race, you know, play with it as it is. But quite clearly, some teams finding the way through on strategy and picking apart in different ways. And why not? Like, we've had a great show, and I'm sure we're going to see that affected differently on different circuits where tyre wear is more and less pertinent.
Let's dial up your race winners then, Charlie Collin and Dane Warren. It was pole position for you guys in race 1. Unable to hold on in a really fun battle. But Dane, let's just start with you. What's it been like having a major GT championship back on the iRacing service? It's so much fun to watch you guys race. I'm sure you guys are having fun driving as well.
Yeah, for sure. And especially to be driving the brand new Porsche 911. I mean, this car is great fun to drive. Maybe not as good over a stint with tyres or such, but no, I'm really enjoying driving alongside Charlie here. It should be a good season.
And also, let's just ask a little bit about your preparations for this kind of an event, Dane, because it's a different kind of a format where you know, now have to also have the team element in, but in a sprint racing format. It's something that we see in the real world a lot, but something not really done too much on iRacing. How did you guys really adapt to this and try to figure out the optimal strategy?
Well, the guys behind the scenes obviously did quite a lot of work on the lead up to this race, testing out different strategies. Obviously, we chose to go one way tonight, but watching some of the other cars, obviously there was so much potential for different strategies. So, I mean, it's very exciting. It gives everyone a chance, I guess, to run at the front and yeah, put on a good show.
One final question for you before I try and dial up Charlie. What time is it for you? Because you're obviously in Australia. It must be quite late for you right now.
It's only 3 o'clock. I did it quite a lot worse than in Pesk. I think I was waking up at like 5 or 6 o'clock, and to put it nicely, it murdered me. So I'm not complaining ending at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, or is it Sunday morning? So yeah, no, not too bad.
Congratulations, Dane. Charlie, a question for you then. You saw your excitement coming across the checkered flag. What does it mean to win here for your team? Because this really is starting off your campaign in the best possible way. Second in race 1, first in race 2.
Yeah, no, I think it was a really good start. Something that I really didn't expect actually coming into it. Like, I think we were going to be fast, but with all the bop and everything, how it lines up, it was always going to be a tough race. But yeah, it just come across the line. Although the BMW behind us, I don't think was ever going to catch us, it was still a lot of pressure. And I really did feel it during that last stint. So yeah, I think just really happy to grab a second and a first.
And in terms of you, Charlie, I mean, both of you guys relatively new to the Coanda team. You only joined up after the Porsche Esports Super Cup qualifiers. What's 2021 been like for you? Obviously, now part of a giant organization like the Coanda guys, things have been going quite well for you in 2021.
Yeah, for sure. As soon as I joined, I kind of, you know, that vibe, that spirit, I think is really something special here at Coanda, and it shows with our results. Yeah, it's been really cool, 2021. Been tough, you know, with different championships, different sims as well, with also school. But yeah, I mean, looking forward to the rest of it, actually.
Congratulations here, guys. Just so you know, it was a bit of a trend, not just today, but yesterday in the GT4 as well. Qualify second. That seems the only way that you can take victory. Good luck. We'll see you in 7 days' time.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
So that was Dane Warren and Charlie Collins, winners in race 2 after a second place result in race number 1. I think we're trying to dial up now the Kova Esports crew for the number 7, Pekka Toivonen and Tuomas Tatala. Lewis McClade, take it away.
Yeah, gotta say, we'll focus on the real positives first. I mean, for one, great results, second and first place. A great move in race 1 around the outside. Let's focus on that first. We'll go with Pekka Toivonen to start with. Talk us through the emotions of winning the opening race of the season and how that helps you throughout the night.
Basically, we had a really good feeling coming towards this race, and we thought we might have a chance, but as we can see, we had a really good pace throughout. And what was really interesting, there was a lot of different tactics on different teams, so I think that it spices it up really much.
Going to ask a question again. We'll go with Pekka again. Kova is a team that's been moving forward, is right at the front of sim racing now on iRacing. You're taking the fight to VRS Commander. Can you keep that up on a consistent basis?
For sure, I hope so. But we are going to try our best, and let's see where it takes us.
Okay, to Tuomas Tatala, question for you. Considering the BMW, considering the tracks, worked out quite well for you here. Do you expect the same kind of thing at Barcelona?
Yeah, I mean, assuming the BOB doesn't change, then I guess it will be similar. I still struggled a bit with the car in this race, so hopefully next race I can be on it like from lap 1.
Well, thank you to both of you. Massive congratulations for the race 1 victory and for being runners-up in race 2. Back to Arjuna, and he's got more.
I think we're now going to bring in the BS competition duo of Felix Kornbach and Phil Danez. Let's start with you, Felix, because that was a really good opening stint in race 2 for you guys there. In terms of the strategy, what led you guys to do the no-tire strategy? It really paid off with that podium position.
Yeah, I mean, the second race was just really, really good. I had a good start. I was P3 instantly, then after a few laps I could overtake P2. And then I was basically same speed as P1 and could stay with him pretty well. And when Phil got in the car, he was a bit slower than P1 because I think I destroyed the tires a bit. And then we got caught by Kova, who were really, really quick. And yeah, but we're really happy with P3.
And Phil, for you, I mean, let's first start with race 1 and the chaos on the start. What happened there? Did you just have a bit of miscommunication and forget the start rules? I'd expect some sort of penalty that's going to drop you guys out of P6, but at the end of the day, P3 in race 2, I think that's the story to focus on.
Yeah, it was, bright and early in the morning. I just had a brain fart and got out of line. I saw green, and that means go for me. So I went and realized that that's not what the case was, and I tried to, get back into my spot, but even race 1, we had some really solid pace and got to move forward. In the second race, we came out in second place after the pit stop, and I felt really good, but I was slowly reeling in Charlie, and I saw Thomas get by Josh Rogers, and man, he just started clocking the laps down, and he was 3 to 4 tenths a lap quicker, and I don't know where the pace was, but we have a little bit more work to do for the next race, but overall it was a great race, and I'm more than pleased to be fighting against, some of the best in the world.
Hey, you said to me before the start of this one that the main thing that you guys are trying to do is make sure that the knowledge gap to some of the bigger teams is really coming down. And I think it's fair to say, based on, like you say, Race 1 and Race 2 performances that you guys are really getting a handle on this BMW M4. Talk to us a little bit now about the short turnaround, not just for next week, but the week after that as well. First to the circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya, but then over to the circuit Zolder. There's not much time for you guys to prepare. I'd have a feeling it's mostly about just nailing your own performance and figuring out the right strategies.
Yeah, well, now that this race is over, we're gonna tomorrow probably go straight back to it and start preparing for the next one and try and figure out how to make the tires last like Kova.
Congratulations, guys. Hope to see you guys continue this performance and take that Zebra maybe to the front in the next couple of races.
Yeah, thank you. Let's hope so.
So that was Phil Denez and Felix Quirnbach. And Lewis, before we say goodbye, let's first recap what we've seen before we look forward. What an opening round of this championship. You can see some of the carnage on the start. There was 4-wide action further back in your pack. We said it in the first race. Despite the level of competition, despite what's on the line here on the road to $25,000, the level of racecraft that we've seen has been enormous to start this campaign off.
Yeah, second to almost none. We've seen some brilliant moves in race 1, saw some great stuff in race 2. It was a little bit more dicey in the opening stages. Pashgergis being sent up by one of the Urano cars and a core as well. Unfortunately for Valkyrie, who had a great race 1, had a great qualifying in race 2, being sent around after contact behind down into the hairpin. A bit of a shame for them, but either way, it was all about this VRS Commander Sim Sports 1-2 on the road.
And let's look forward while we continue to just recap this action from race 2. Next week, I've said on a number of occasions, it's not a quick turnaround, not much time to prepare as we head to the circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya. What are you expecting from Spain?
So I'm not necessarily sure. After what we've seen here, we've seen 2 wildly different races. We've seen it be mostly about VRS Commander Sim Sports 93 car and of course Kova, but there the form book's slightly different. You know, it's a wildly different venue than what we have here. Am I expecting to see other cars towards the front? Potentially, but this is Commander we're talking about here. This is Kova we're talking about, where we're in the age of those 2 teams at the moment, it feels, and I think it's still going to be those 2 jostling around at the front.
I mean, the only guys that we're really missing are the Redline crew, and at least we saw Gianni Vecchio. He's watching on. He's intrigued as to how things are going to go. There's our schedule, July and August, 2 months and 12 races across 6 weekends. And of course, July 31st and August 1st, the VRS SCO 24 Hours of Spa with a separate $10,000 prize pool. For now, though, it is time to say goodbye. We will see you in 7 days' time from Barcelona. What an opening round of this championship. VRS and SCO have come together to bring back GT3 racing to the top level of the iRacing service. On behalf of the entire RaceSpotTV team, for Hugo Luis, our broadcast director, for my co-commentator Lewis McLeod, my name is Arjuna Kenkipati. Delighted you joined us here live on RaceSpotTV and on VRS's Twitch. A reminder, you can head to giveaway.sportscaropen.com to enter yourself for a chance to win a Lego Technic Porsche 911 RSR and to also put yourself into the season-long giveaway of a VRS Direct Force Pro wheelbase. We'll be back in 7 days' time. You don't want to miss any of the action. We'll see you from Barcelona.